Call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the City of Daly City regular City Council meeting on Monday, September 10th, 2018. For those of you wishing to address the City Council on any item on the agenda or under public appearances, oral communications, please complete a speaker card located at the entrance to the council chambers and submit to a staff member as early in the meeting as possible. May we have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Ms. Christensen?
Here.
Mr. Gingona?
Here.
Mr. Buenaventura?
Present.
Mr. Sylvester?
Present.
Ms. Manalo?
Present. Thank you. First on our agenda, we have the pleasure of our Assembly member, Phil Ting, who represents us here in Daly City, to give us a legislative update. Welcome, Assembly member Phil
Thank you,
Ting.
Madam Mayor. Well, first, let me I know we have two council members who will be, I don't even want to say retire, but
You can say that.
I can say retire.
Go ahead, you can say that too.
Retire just means you have a lot more free time to do all these things that you said no to. So let me just first thank both Council Member Gingona and Council Member Christensen for their just tireless service to this fabulous city. I mean, their contributions have been felt and will be felt for many, many years. But as we all know, public service is very much that. It's a public service, and it's something that requires a lot of sacrifice from yourselves, from your families, and I just want to say personally, thank you very much for your service to this city.
Thank you.
I also want to just congratulate you. I know you just had your opening for your youth center. I think that's fabulous. Congratulations on that. It's great and wonderful news. So it's great to be able to see that center actually open. I did want to mention two things, I think, on a legislative front that really impact Daly City locally. I was very honored to work with the mayor, with this city council, to help deliver from the state a $1.5 million grant for our Dolger Senior Center. I know all of us spend a lot of time in that Dolger Senior Center, and we know it needs a little bit of love. So very, very proud to be able to help deliver some of that money from the state to make sure that that center continues to see and be the center for Daly City civic activity. Very, very proud of that. Also want to just thank the Daly City for their support of Senator Wiener's bill, SB 221, something that I'm a joint author or a principal co-author on as well. We were able to get that bill through the legislature. We are hopeful that it may get the governor's signature. We're not quite sure. The governor has unfortunately vetoed this bill before, so we hope that by delivering more continued community support that we'll be able to see eye to eye and get this bill signed. But thank you very much for that. On a slightly little broader level, and I'll just just say a couple things, and then happy to kind of take any kind of questions you may have. Obviously, one of the biggest issues in the state right now is the state of homelessness. I know that Daly City is fairly fortunate that it hasn't quite been hit as hard as other places. Obviously, if you travel to San Francisco, you just know how devastating homelessness has been. Almost 8,000 people who are homeless in San Francisco. If it makes any of us feel better in the Bay Area, there are almost 60,000 homeless people in the city of Los Angeles. It's quite an astronomical letter. It's sort of an astronomical number when we kind of think about it and how awfully high it is. So very proud to work with our 11 big city mayors to help get $500 million of one-time money to fight homelessness, primarily in the form of grants to various cities, counties, to really develop and build temporary shelters to try to get people off the streets as soon as possible. Getting people off the streets is obviously the first step. If they don't get off the streets, it's very difficult for them to get help, whether it's an addiction or mental health issues. So that's something that we're proud of at the state. We're trying to step up our activism really on homelessness and housing, two areas where really, as a state, we had not done very much. Last year, we passed a fairly historic housing program, both on grant money, but as well as streamlining to try to make it easier to build housing. And really, we're urging all the cities, whether it's San Francisco, San Jose, or Oakland, but all the cities in the Bay Area to really do their share of building housing, given how unaffordable housing is right now. I know I have mentioned this at different community organizations, but we're thinking a little bit ahead. The state set aside $90 million to grant community organizations to do outreach around the census. The census is something that's very important for the state because it's how we get federal funding. Almost every item of federal funding is tied to our population. Obviously, we're the largest state in the union, and congressional representation, the House of Representatives, is also based on the census. We are very, very worried that we're going to get undercounted, and we're going to lose representation, we're going to lose funding. Again, doesn't mean the people go away, doesn't mean the need goes away, it just means that we get less dollars to help all the people who are here in Daly City, in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, all over California. So that's a major area that we're really trying to very, very much focus on. The other issue I would just highlight in particular that I know many residents in Daly City care about really, which is around education funding. Education funding took some devastating cuts from 2008 to 2012, really, and we've been trying to make up lost ground. So we're very proud that we have, since 2012, really increased K through 12 funding, but also increased funding for higher education. So it meant more money across the board to every single school district really in the state. And it also, in particular, meant more money to UC, CSU, and to our community college system. And one of our primary focuses has been to make sure that there's greater access for California students. Obviously, for a long time, we heard that it was easier to get into Berkeley from New York than it was from Daly City. So that's absolutely unexcusable. We're trying to make sure that we're opening access, that the money that we're giving the University of California is tied to more slots for California. So we're very proud that they have opened significantly more slots. And in fact, because of that, you probably have heard recently there's been complaints about lack of housing at each of the campuses. In fact, there was a public article in the Chronicle about how they're asking faculty members to house students because they're pushing enrollment. Well, one of the reasons they're pushing enrollment is we're absolutely making them open more slots for Californians because, I'm sure you hear all over town. You hear about people who can't get into UC, and it used to be just UC Berkeley. Now it's UC Berkeley all the way down to UC Santa Cruz. So we want to make sure that UC continues to have access for Californians. That's a primary responsibility for us. Also in education is what we call early childhood education. We want more slots for daycare and preschool, moving closer to have universal preschool. That's definitely one of our goals in the state, and so we think that that's going to be very important. We know that how many words people know by the time, how many words children know by the time they enter kindergarten has a huge determining factor how successful they're going to be doing in school, which is sort of shocking when you think about it. You would think that everyone gets to kindergarten all on the same level playing field. That's absolutely not true. So we want to make sure we try to level that playing field because if they're behind in kindergarten, it's very hard for them to ever really catch up. So again, that's a very quick update from the state on a number of issues. It's been very good economically at the state level. We're doing very, very well, but we're also preparing for the future, which is there's always a recession around the corner. We now have a rainy day fund, thanks to the wisdom of the voters, but also we keep putting money into it. Because between our rainy day fund and our reserve, we have about $16 billion in reserve out of a $132 billion state general fund. So we're very, very proud of that. But we also know that a very devastating recession could take a significant amount of money away from that. So let me just stop there and see if there are any questions or, things that you care about that I didn't talk about, but happy to take any questions from the council.
Thank you so much for that update. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Assemblymember Ting, for coming. One of the things I noticed, and I think we all noticed here in Daly City, is your efforts to work on the DMV long line problem. I joined in that. I mean, I too had waited 3-4 hours the last time I went, and I wanted to see if there's been any progress on that.
Absolutely. So, one of the issues around the DMV, obviously, long lines are not new. The lines have gotten longer in March because of Real ID, which was a federal requirement. Again, if any of your residents ask you, do you need the Real ID? You absolutely don't need Real ID unless you only want to fly with your ID. If you don't mind flying with a driver's license and a passport, you can renew everything online. So we're really trying to encourage everybody to do as much online as is possible. The DMV was given more resources in this budget, in the June 15 budget that we approved that went live July 1st. They're adding about 200 plus positions. I had an opportunity to visit the Daly City DMV about 2 weeks back when Supervisor Campa happened to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. He waited 3 hours, but his 3-hour wait was before it opened up. So, obviously very concerned. We're monitoring it. I'm having regular conversations with DMV. They issued their first sort of report update, which was the first month into this fiscal year, or I guess 2 months into the fiscal year. And it sounds like wait times across the board are going down, which is good. I do want to make sure that it's not just an overall average, that it really is based on some of the heaviest traffic and the DMV offices have the longest wait time. 2 of the longest wait times happen to be San Francisco and the one in Oakland on Claremont. Daly City continues to have long wait times, but not as long as those 2. So that's something that we're watching very, very closely. They do have an opportunity to come back to the legislature, ask for more money if they wish, but before they get any more money, we want to make sure that where they've deployed resources, deployed people, it's actually really working, and then they actually have a plan for any future resources. We know that, frankly, DMV is how most people interface with the state of California. Unlike a city where you drive on roads and you have stop signs, you have public servants like police and fire, public works, a lot of interface with local residents. With local residents, they don't really interface with the state that much. DMV is one of the only places they do that. So we're very, very concerned. We're watching that all the time. We'll be doing more hearings in the fall while we're in recess, budget hearings, to kind of watch that. So appreciate that question.
Thank you. And Councilmember Sylvester.
Assemblymember Ting, thank you so much for coming. Basically, I don't have any questions, but I have a few comments. I want to thank you so much for everything that you've done for Daly City. I know we've met before in the past, and you sat down with us and asked, what is it that Daly City needs? And of the many things that we discussed, the most important was Dolger, to repair that roof. And I kind of thought it went away. And when I asked the mayor, what's happening on that, don't worry, I'm working on it. So the persistence, and here we are today. So I want to thank you for that. I'd like to call your attention to, I think it's Assembly Bill 406, which now creates more transparency in charter schools that are for profit that the governor just approved, so that basically they would have to be on the same ground as our public schools, because we talked about school funding. You also mentioned about housing. We do have a problem, and housing is an issue, and I'm glad you stay in tune to that. And folks need to know that it's a regional issue, not just a local issue. And Daly City is doing the best that it can to provide more housing, and I hope we will continue. And lastly, what you didn't give yourself credit for is your push to move to use of EVs, which you have been a proponent for that. And if I'm not mistaken, Governor Brown is about to make an announcement about EVs, that California is going to move to all EVs by what he wanted by the year 2040. So I wish to thank you, because I know I've been following you and your constant work, basically not only for today but for our future, is to be remembered, and I definitely won't forget, and I'm sure we won't as well. So thank you very much, Assembly Member.
No, thank you. I think it's an honor to be able to work with, and it's a partnership, it's a team between the city and the state, and I very much appreciate the partnership I have with this amazing city. The EV legislation, we weren't quite able to get it across, so we're going to need your help to get that across next year with hopefully hopefully Governor Newsom. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
Just knocking on wood there.
Great.
Well, thank you so much for supporting us in the Dolger Senior Center and really ensuring that there's more longevity for those places. I know many of us have been there, many seniors, many youth, so much appreciated for also your leadership around education and just being there for us on the forefront of housing. Very recently, on August 31st, the CEDN leadership of CEDN filed for bankruptcy, and I know that we would love to lean on your support, and I know you're there for us as well, and ensuring that we find a provider.
Well, I think it's a great question. I'll give you a quick update. My team was just talking to the Attorney General's team, and they have a very aggressive plan on how to enforce compliance with whoever buys Seton. Obviously, we can't completely control who purchased Seton, but there are conditions put on the purchase by the previous Attorney General, and this Attorney General, based on that conversation, plans to be even more aggressive. We also have legislation that was passed by Assemblymember Mursucci, my colleague from Los Angeles, that even further clarifies the ability of the state to really regulate that purchase of a hospital. Obviously, I don't need to talk about how important Seton Medical Center is. It's the only hospital between here and the middle part of the peninsula. It serves a population that doesn't always have access to health care. It's very, very important to not just this Daly City community, but really to North San Mateo County. So that's something that we're going to watch very, very closely. We will all be working together, but we, in particular, are going to be working hand in hand with our Attorney General to make sure that whatever sale happens really has certain conditions that continue to meet the needs of our community here.
Thank you so much. We look forward to continuing and working with you on that important issue in our community, and we are very grateful that you represent us here in Daly City.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Phil.
Next on our agenda, we have Crazy About Cars in Colma. Mr. Tom Norris, President of the Daly City Public Library Associates. Long time no see.
Yes. Hello, Madam Mayor and members of the council. It's a pleasure to be here again talking about the DCPLA, Daly City Public Library Associates, and our latest fundraising effort. I have Pauline Fong Martinez, who is with me today, who has a video, I guess a PowerPoint that she was trying to get on. It's on the screen, so we're going to see if we can show you. But let me tell you a little bit about it. First of all, we have with us from our board, Adrian Tessier, Mike Pacelli, Jane Chambers, and Bill Lex, all members of the DCPLA that are here today supporting what we're doing. Bob McClellan, I think he's up here too. There's Bob, who is involved in Crazy About Cars. And we would like to make this an annual event, which will be a major fundraiser. So we'll raise more money for the public libraries. And we're very fortunate that we've got a lot of people involved in already. A lot of the dealerships in Colma, which is a really big supporter of the DCPLA, are working on this with us. We're going to have cars, we're going to have music, we're going to have food, we're going to have teams from various dealerships have competitions to see who can change the tires quicker or whatever. So anyway, it's going to be, and there'll also be from Home Depot a section for kids to build the soapboxes and race them. Nice. And that's all going to be there. This is going to be on the 29th of September. It's going to be from 12 p.m. until 4 p.m. And I have lost my co-person here. I've just introduced you. So Pauline, you want to take it from there?
I do. I had a PowerPoint presentation. Only labored over it, but you know how technology is. But anyway, good evening. So, are we all crazy about classic cars, roadsters, crazy cars, NASCAR? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And we all love learning and having fun at it, right? So we want everyone to come have a really crazy fun day at Crazy About Cars in Coma. It's going to be on Saturday, September 29th from 12 noon to 4 p.m. And this is going to be an event that you will all remember, okay? So here are some key facts about the event. First of all, some of our sponsors are going to compete in a NASCAR type pit crew challenge, right? And this is where they, it's a time pit crew event. They jack up the car and then they change all the tires and they drive a car a distance to prove that they did it right, okay? And I know that these, pit crew challengers are very to go. We have a trophy already. This trophy is actually taller than I am. It's taller than Tom. Wow. Okay. Whoa. And the bragging rights that come with it are just incredible. But, our presenting, there you go. There's our first slide. And now we're in our second slide. Thank you so much, Joseph. And there you go. Okay. And so, we're really grateful to our presenting sponsors, City Toyota and Nissan of Ceremony, and then our pit crew sponsors, Stewart Chevrolet, Lucky Chances, Agbayani HVAC Service, and then Malloy's Tavern and Quicksilver are actually getting together on a team of their own. So I know that there's a lot of people who are fans of these, organizations, and we can't wait to see what they're going to go ahead and do. And then we will also have a small car show with the hottest, loveliest, most exquisite cars. So from top to bottom, here's an example. This is Dominic Mackey's 1955 Chevy Bel Air convertible on the top, and then his 1956 yellow Chevy pickup. And then our racing guru, Bob McLennan, he's here, okay? And his 1955 Bel Air Roadster is at the bottom. So, and I know Council Member Sylvester, I know from your book selection, okay, that you will love these spectacular cars. So I expect to see you there with your children, with your family.
That's right.
And then our event is also very hands-on fun for kids too. They're going to be able to make their own wood car and race them down a track, all built by Coma's Home Depot. And we're very thankful to Home Depot because they're going to host this kids' workshop. They're really great at it. They're going to be providing prizes to kids and their family. Like you can get like this ginormous grill. I don't even know where you could put this grill, but the family will get it and the kids will get a really cool prize too. And that's for the car that goes down fastest, down the track. And then there's so much more. There's Jefferson's Robotics Club, Daly City Library's Art Poster Contest. We have Fender booths, live music by Daly City All-Star Band and Skylawn Community College, and food trucks by Tres Taco Truck, as well as Burgermeister and Softy. And then, the point of the fundraiser, right, is to raise monies for our libraries. And a lot of people don't know, there's over 105 or 110,000 residents that live in the cities of Broadmoor, Coma, and Daly City, and that's who we serve. And so we want to really thank all of our businesses for coming through to help provide a free event for our community, but more importantly, to provide funding that we grant back to the city to purchase, resources. It could be anywhere from furnishings to online materials. Like I know that part of what we're going to donate from this event is going to be STEM materials, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Really important, for future careers and growing, our community to be productive and competitive. And what a great show of support, right? All of these, funders that you see, I think I mentioned presenting sponsors, City Toyota and Nissan of Ceremony, pit sponsors, Stewart Chevrolet, Lucky Chances, Agbayani Construction, HVAC Services, Malloy's Tavern, and Quicksilver, and supporting partners, Ceremony Center, the town of Coma, Coma's The Home Depot,
Planet Fitness, and Republic Services. These are names that we hear over and over again, right, in terms of being supportive of our community. And then we have other donors and sponsors, Bay Relations, Cypress Lawn, Doug & Sarah Mortuary, Holy Cross Catholic Cemeteries, Kimco Realty, Orange Theory, Tri-Counties Bank, Mission Edge Cafe and Rotisserie, and Moonstar Restaurant. So I've said this is a fundraiser that none of you will ever forget, so that means you have to come to it first so you won't forget it, okay? So go fast or go slow. Just go to Crazy About Cards in Coma to support our libraries. And you can go find Crazy About Cards on Eventbrite to get more information, and we will see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember
My job
Sylvester.
was just to kill time until she got the program going. Thank you for your support.
I think I have some comments from my colleague, so not Councilmember Sylvester.
Ms. Martinez, would you kindly step up to the lectern?
Yes.
I want to say you provided an excellent presentation on this upcoming event. I was at another car show this past weekend,
Yes.
and I looked at the cars and I felt I was discriminated against because they said classic cars. So on this particular one, is it just classic cars?
No, it's crazy cars.
Crazy about
it's
cars.
roadsters. I mean, the thing is that I didn't want to make it into a commercial, but we still have spots for different cars. So if you know of anyone, and there's no entry fee, but we are very selective because since it's a small car show, we want to have the best.
All right.
And of course, we have rooms for sponsors.
All right, so you got room for Teslas? Okay,
If
just so I
you-
bring that up.
If you provide one, I would love to go ahead and
All
have
right.
it. Okay.
I want to say, I just wanted to bring that point up, and the other point I wanted to bring up, and you made mention that there would be food, so I will be there. Thank you very much.
Got it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your
Quick,
presentation.
Pauline,
Yes.
Pauline.
always a pleasure. If this event is anything like the event that you organized the last time, it's going to be great.
We
And
think it'll be more fun because we don't expect rain and it'll be warmer.
that's right. That's right.
So,
But great job, and thank you very much for all the work that you do in the community.
thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pauline. And thank you very much, President Norris, for all you do for our libraries. Okay, moving on to our next, we actually have a certificate of appreciation for Miss Lily Louie. Is she present? Okay, she's not here, so we will go on to the certificate of appreciation for Miss Teresa Perano.
I'm not sure where I should stand.
Right
there. Perfect. Thank you.
To present this to you. Okay. We have a certificate of appreciation, and the City Council of Daly City takes great pleasure in presenting this certificate to Teresa Perano in recognition of your dedicated service to the residents of Daly City as a member of the Recreation Commission. The energy, enthusiasm, and personal commitment that you have made in serving Daly City as a volunteer and member of the commission exemplifies the highest standard of civic leadership. On behalf of a grateful community, the City Council of Daly City expresses heartfelt gratitude for your outstanding community service and wishes you abundant health and happiness in all your future endeavors. So thank you so much. I know you didn't leave your service, but this was also for your service that you have done. So she still continues to serve, but for all the dedication you've done on the entire commission.
Thank you. Did that mean that everybody heard that or just? Oh, thank you so much.
One each.
Thank you. I'd like to just say thank you to each and every one of you. It's been an honor and to work with all of you and volunteer with so many people. It's amazing. I walked in and I said, look, there's so many volunteers here. So I would just like to say is on behalf of the years that I've given, and I hope to give many more, I'd like to thank all of you for what you do, and all of you for what you do to make Daly City an amazing city to live in. Thank you so much.
Please stay at the podium.
Commissioner Perano, I do recall the day. Just want to let everybody know she's not leaving, okay? But this was basically a certificate of appreciation for what you basically have done and what you have given this city. Being kind of new, it definitely came to fruition when I first met you. And I knew it, and how humble you are to not only talk about yourself, but the community that you serve. It was a very tough decision moving you over from another commission who did not want you to go. They probably, but you're still here with the city, and thank you for what. Just wanted to let you know I'm very, very appreciative of everything that you do. Thank you, Commissioner Perano.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Teresa, I mean, I would say that, you know, this certificate is it's great, but it's long overdue. I think you have always been there for the community, and I don't think we express our gratitude enough for what you've done. You've done everything from obviously recreation to planning commission.
I'm sorry.
And personally, on a personal level, you have been there for me when I needed a pep talk or I needed some wisdom on an issue. And I don't think I've said enough thank yous to you for all that you've done. And I want you to know how much I appreciate how you have really devoted your heart into this city. Everything from your singing to your being always present to just reaching out to everybody and mobilizing people. And so I've learned a lot from you, and I am sad to say that I haven't said enough thank you. So now I want to thank you personally with all my heart for what you've done and what you continue to do. And please don't ever think that we take you for granted. We cherish your contributions to the city. So thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been my honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a proclamation from September 15th to October 15th as Latino Heritage Month in Daly City. Mr. Edgardo Bolanos. So we are proclaiming September 15th through October 15, 2018, Latino Heritage Month in Daly City. Whereas the observation started in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson and was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting on September 15th and ending on October 15th. And every year since then has been a commemorated event in Daly City with the annual celebration since September 2002. And whereas Daly City celebrates Latino Heritage Month on Saturday, September 15th at City Hall, right here, Unidos como una sola voz, an event featuring musical performances, dancing, and an art exhibit in the Octagon Gallery, right upstairs. And whereas each year we take time to recognize how California's growing Latino population enriches our state and strengthens our cultural and economic ties to Mexico, Spain, and Central and South America. And whereas according to the most recent statistical data, the current Latino Hispanic population in Daly City is more than 25,000, or roughly 23.6% of the city's population. And whereas Daly City has a foreign-born population of 52.3%, ranking 6th among U.S. cities with populations of 100,000 or more, including 12,000 immigrants from Latin America. And whereas part of the Latino Heritage Month, Daly City also commemorates the anniversary of the independence for Latin America countries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua on September 15th, and further commemorates the independence of Mexico and Chile on September 16th and September 18th, respectively. Now, therefore, I, Justin C. Manalo, Mayor of the City of Daly City, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th as Latino Heritage Month in Daly City. Rotate.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. It is my honor to be standing here and receiving this on behalf of the citizens of Daly City. I grew up in Daly City, Latino, first generation Mexican American. So the word heritage in the title Latino Heritage Month celebration means very much. Heritage is the traditions that are passed on from one generation to the next. We are focusing on this Saturday. We are concentrating on youth groups. So there's gonna be almost every act is gonna be a youth, whether in high school or younger. We do have some adults, but it's okay. And it's important because these students some are born out of the country and are freshly here. Some are first, second, third generation, and it's important that we focus on that. The other focus of the event this Saturday is resources and information for all the citizens of Daly City, the 23.6% that are Latino, but everyone in general. The struggles for every community, every ethnic group you can think of, whether it's white, black, Filipino, Chinese, doesn't matter. These resources are going to be there this Saturday for anyone, whether it's housing, mental health, overall health, legal services. We're going to be providing all that this Saturday. Again, it is this Saturday from 12 to 3, right on the lawn outside of the City Hall. We hope that you will all join us, and if not, please, if you're watching out there, come by from 12 to 3. You can stop anytime. There'll be entertainment while you collect resources. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's really important that you noted how the youth and young people are involved in all of this and the continuation of cultural heritage, and now that's one of the main pieces that you put together. So thank you. So we are now moving on to the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting of August 13th, 2018. May I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the agenda. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to the consent agenda. I'd like to pull item number 6 and item number 8. Are there any other items that would like to be pulled on the consent agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to also pull item number 3.
Okay, so with the item number 3 and number 6 and 8 being pulled from the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, notice of the completion for the 2017-2018 fiscal year tree maintenance service agreement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In reading the staff report under the paragraph of background, the amount put aside for tree maintenance services. And in reading the discussion, we spent more money than had to be spent because of increased number of hazardous trees that needed to be removed. My concern is with the recent events of hazardous trees and diseased trees, causing fires. I'm just wondering, what about those trees? Are these city-owned trees or neighbor trees? I just needed to obtain an update.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Soshi, the contract is for routine maintenance where we do what's called grid pruning, and over about a 3-year period of time, they basically prune all the city trees throughout the city, the trees that we maintain. And this work that they're doing is only for city trees. We don't do any work on private trees, except for the exception of, let's say, a tree that was in somebody's yard fell down in the street. We'd clear the right of way. So when we let the contract at the beginning of the year, there's a set amount of grid pruning that they're going to do. But then as they do their pruning, or through complaints that we receive, or our own park staff, if they see trees in a park or any of our street trees that actually need to be removed, we pay our tree maintenance contractor extra to actually do tree removals. So that's what the extra is for actually removing dead or diseased trees, or ones that are structurally inadequate to continue to stay up. So the contract is let for grid pruning, and then extra work is for any trees that have to be removed that they come across. Or like I said, we get through other kinds of complaints, but we do not do any work on private trees. So for example, if there's a private tree that's diseased and it's not in any way threatening the public right-of-way, it's really just a private property matter for them to deal with our tree. We don't inspect trees on private property. We have on very rare occasions, and I would say during my 10 years here, probably only about 3 times, have ever actually sent an abatement letter to a property owner to remove a tree because it's in such poor health and it's so close to the public right-of-way that we consider it a hazard to the public because it's really close to a street or a sidewalk or whatever. But like I said, that very rarely happens because we don't go on private property to inspect the trees. They have to be obviously dead or diseased, and we can see it from the street.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. I think you've answered my question, which was my next question. When does the city get involved? And if the tree is threatened to maybe be a hazard for the right-of-way, so I guess if it falls over.
If it could fall over into the street, yeah. That's usually the only time that we do it, is if a tree is dead or diseased and looks like it's going to be dead soon, and it's so close to the right-of-way that if it did collapse, it could fall on a car in the street or a person in the street. We're responsible for the safety of the public right-of-way, so we would tell them to abate that tree.
I do understand the concept between city-owned and private trees, but I'm just wondering if the city can take more of an active effort to basically notify a homeowner. Say, for instance, a complaint has been made, and this is to advise that it was regarding the tree, which is your tree, and just leave it at that. At least it's documented, and rather than, if it's a private tree, tree looks okay, so you tell the complainant, it's up to you to contact the owner.
Yeah, and part of the reason why we do not tell people to abate trees on their private property is because we can't go onto their private property to inspect it without their permission. And so without actually going onto the property and getting a closer look at the tree, a tree can look shabby and not necessarily be in ill health or a threat to the public. It just doesn't look very good. So unless an arborist looks at the tree and determines that it is at risk, there's no way for us to be able to even advise the property owner. I mean, we're not going on private property and inspecting trees.
And I have a concern about city liability if we start telling people, well, your tree's okay or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, we don't want to be in that situation.
Exactly. We don't want to take some kind of responsibility.
If
that
someone
is not
files a
respecting
complaint
the
about a
trees.
neighbor, they're gonna have to deal with it.
Well, my feeling is, it's not for the
Can't
city
do
to
that.
go unless you get onto the property and say,
We don't,
your tree is bad. What I'm looking at is a proactive effort to say, hey, we received a complaint from the neighbor due to the fact that we have determined it's on private property, which is your property. Would you kindly look into it? I'm not saying for the city to take action, but maybe to send a notice of a complaint has been filed. When we file a complaint for cars parked in excess of 72 hours, we wait 72 hours and we tow the vehicle. But at least a notice is placed on the vehicle. I'm just saying to be proactive rather than reactive if something should happen in the future, because it may fall onto the right of way.
Yeah, and in the case of the car is in the public right of way. In the case of the trees, 90% of the time they're on private property. We can't go on there to inspect it. If somebody gives us a complaint about a tree, we can tell almost immediately whether it's private or public, because of Google Earth and
Look at your
everything
map.
else we can go to. We can go, no, that's that backyard, whatever. At that point, other than somebody complaining about the tree, we have no information to go on to notify the homeowner, and we're not going to take just some layperson's opinion on what the quality of the tree is. If it's a neighbor, talk to your neighbor and tell them you're worried about their tree, and they can deliver that same message themselves, because they're seeing the tree, and they may be the one who's threatened by it.
Okay. I
We just
appreciate-
don't have enough, I mean,
You don't have enough
if we did what you're talking
personnel for
about,
that.
we would, I mean, you can have a situation where a resident doesn't like his neighbor's tree because it drops fruit or it drops leaves in his yard, and he don't like that
Right.
tree, and the next thing you know, he's calling us, and
Yeah.
then we're calling the
Gotcha.
property owner, and we become the advocate for a neighborhood spite thing over a tree.
All right. I like to say I appreciate what staff is doing, and full transparency to the constituents of Daly City through the iHelp system, to which constituents can report, and the city will go out and look and advise. And I just wanted to reaffirm that as well. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller.
With that said, I would like to make a motion that we approve item number 3 on the agenda.
Do I have a second?
second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number 6, authorize the interim city manager to enter an agreement with the County of San Mateo for purposes of accepting and appropriating grant funding for a floor replacement at Lincoln Park Community Center. I have a comment, not a question. I do want to say I'm thankful to see this come to fruition. I know that, many times we don't have enough funds, but it's partnerships that we create with whether it's state legislator or county supervisor that continues to remember to us here in Daly City. And I'd like to say thank you, because I know it was through Supervisor David Canepa that helped put this funding for the Lincoln Park floor replacement. And I've heard many times from a lot of the seniors that dance there how important it is in their physical exercise, and every time they're like, are we going to get new floors? So this is something very special to them, not only to the seniors, but for the young people. And I know some people have their parties there as well. And so it's something that is necessary. I know they have their senior events there as well. So I just wanted to be able to let the audience know, and also let the folks watching know that the floors are coming. So with that, a motion to approve item number 6.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Item number 8, amend traffic regulations, convert metered parking on Templeton Avenue to commercial loading zone, convert no parking zone on 35 Templeton Avenue to limited time metered parking zone, install stop signs at Woodrow Street, install stop signs on Willett Street, and establish a 4-hour limited time parking on East Multi Street. I know this was a culmination of different amendments, traffic regulations, but I did notice the one on Woodrow Street, which has been, I know, something that neighborhood has been concerned about for a very long time, especially since those stop signs by Woodrow Street is near Woodrow Wilson Elementary School. And so to see this also come to fruition is really important around areas where we need really, pedestrian safety measurements for the children that walk to school. So with that, I'd like to move to approve item number 8.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. No? Oh,
I think we approved it already.
oh yeah, so I think we can't because we approved it already.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, it was too late. We had already approved the consent agenda. So moving on to item number 11. We already approved the consent agenda, so yeah. So, public hearings, item number 11, Westlake Shopping Center, mixed-use building, 10 Park Plaza, general plan, amendment GPA 417-12760, plan development PD 4-17-12761, design review DR-417-12762, and the CEQA review, CEQA 4-17-12763.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This is a proposal by Kimco to construct a new mixed-use building at Westlake Shopping Center located at 10 Park Plaza Drive. The entitlements Mayor Manalo read are those which are sought tonight. The project location is, of course, Westlake Shopping Center. I think everybody knows where that is. I won't go into too much detail with that. The project site context is it's basically surrounded by the existing retail shopping center, apartments on the opposite sides of Lake Merced and Park Plaza Drive, with single-family homes located north of John Daly Boulevard. The applicant is proposing to demolish a 2-story retail and office building comprising about 55,000 square feet and a 60-space parking lot that's north of Chipotle to construct a new 6-story mixed-use building consisting of about 34,458 square feet of retail space at the ground floor of the new building, 179 apartment units on floors 2 through 6, as well as a 260-space parking garage underneath the new building. The area between the mattress firm and Building M would be replaced with a new driveway that would connect Park Plaza Drive to the Trader Joe's parking lot. The applicant's also proposing to construct stair modifications to Building K, which is between Ross and San Mateo Credit Union, and of course we have slides to show all of this, as well as they are proposing pedestrian improvements in the parking lot that's in front of the Trader Joe's and the existing retail buildings that exist at the shopping center today. So Kimco is proposing, of course, to essentially remove the building that's shown on the bottom slide. The building's now closing in on probably 60-plus years of age. It's showing its age, and it's time, Kimco believes, for a change in the shopping center. They've decided that a mixed-use building that essentially keeps the retail spaces in their generally in their current locations while expands the building north of John Daly Boulevard with apartments above is the project that they've developed and proposed. To move forward with this project, the applicant needs to obtain approval from the City Council of a general plan amendment. The current general plan designation, commercial, retail, and office, does not allow for residential uses, and so a amendment to the commercial mixed use designation is required. The zoning, which is PD 60, also doesn't currently allow residential uses. That needs to be amended. Of course, the City Council would need to approve the design of the buildings, pedestrian, vehicular circulation, as well as approve a CEQA document for this project, which a consultant hired by the city has determined to be a mitigated negative declaration. This slide shows the existing site plan, just to orient the council members and the public. This is John Daly Boulevard here, Park Plaza Drive, Westlake Center Drive. Here's Trader Joe's, Ross, and it's this part of the shopping center that would essentially undergo redevelopment. So this building would be torn down and replaced by a new mixed-use building, and that's shown here. Again, a new pedestrian and vehicular connection would be provided from Park Plaza Drive to the parking lot in front of Trader Joe's, and that's essentially shown here.
Who's squealing?
And that this slide actually shows the vehicular circulation that's proposed in the shopping center. And of course, the most significant change to that is this new driveway connection. This shows, this photograph is taken, this is the mattress firm here. I think there's a cell phone store at the beginning, at the base of this building, but essentially is located in this area. This would become a place where cars could pass through to enter the shopping center.
So that's going to take some of the pressure off.
I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the
Center Drive, yeah.
primary objectives of the shopping center owners was to provide additional means of vehicular ingress and egress to and from the shopping center. And removing the building and redeveloping the building in this area allows for the construction of this new roadway. And it's also a pedestrian connection, it should be said.
And there are bus stops right near there.
There's a bus stop actually in this area underneath
right
this photo, yeah. One of the important facets of this project also is to increase, and one of the primary concerns of staff, well, you know, a lot of us, of course, shop at Trader Joe's and, you know, we frequent the stores that are there. And we wanted to make sure that the pedestrian experience was also enhanced in the shopping center parking lot. And the applicant worked with staff to provide, and it's kind of hard to see them, but these sort of paseo, if you will, sort of connections to the new sidewalk that would be constructed in front of the shopping center. And we provided a photograph right now to show that there's basically not a lot of room for people to move through the parking lot. And the parking lot's very tight. I don't think I need to tell any of you that. Anybody who's gone there knows that it can be tricky, especially if you have little kids. So the applicants work with the staff to try and, again, provide these sort of lateral pedestrian connections, if you will.
And are those lines on that like curbs that would protect in those, not the main one, but the walkways there? The little
Yes, those would be raised curbs. Very good.
Okay, so that really protects the pedestrian.
Yes, it would. Yes, they would be planted.
Because being a large person who shops, you cannot fit between those cars without knocking their mirrors. You know, if you've been to Ross and you bought a bunch of stuff, I mean, it's ugly.
Right. So
And
the staff.
How large are those pedestrian pathways?
You know, I'm not sure the exact dimension. They have to meet a minimum size in terms of width for compliance with.
I'm assuming this is drawn to scale.
This drawing is drawn to scale on the large
Because
drawings that we
if you look at
have.
the parking spots, so it's pretty significantly wide.
The architect can answer that question if you want to hold that. I would imagine they're at least 36 inches wide. So we thought we'd walk through the floors of the building, beginning with basically -2. So there's 2 levels of underground parking in this building. At the second floor that's underground, there would be 132 parking spaces. That's called B2. In B1, there's 128 parking spaces. So 2 floors of underground parking. Before we move to the ground level floor plan, we wanted to review the parking overview that's proposed. So the upper portion of the slide shows the bedroom count in this project. Based on zoning ordinance requirements and a 20% reduction that's applicable for mixed-use buildings such as this, the bedroom count corresponds to a required number of parking spaces, which totals 236 required after a mixed-use reduction is applied. The ITE manual, the Institute of Traffic Engineers, has identified 216 parking spaces are required at the peak parking demand for this project. And in fact, 236 are what the zoning ordinance requires, but in fact, 260 parking spaces are provided in those floors, the two floors that in the previous two slides of the garage. This leaves 24 parking spaces for other uses. And there will be, probably staff that from the retail stores and staff from the apartment. This is a rental building. I don't know if I mentioned that. That might use some of those spaces. So the existing PD zoning requires 3.29 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet of gross leasable area. There's no residential requirement because there's no residential, of course, in Westlake Shopping Center. So the total Westlake Center square feet after this project is built, so including the new retail, would be about 683,806 square feet, which equates, if you do the math, to 2,184 required parking spaces. The parking provision in the center, as proposed, exclusive of the parking garage again, which would be provided for the residential units, would be 2,184 parking spaces. So the parking actually meets the current parking ratio that's specified in the existing zoning for retail. So that actually doesn't change as a factor. And that's maintained in the new zoning, in the proposed plan development zoning regulations. So if there's no questions on parking, we can move into the proposed floors. So this is a ground level floor plan.
I have a question on parking.
Uh-huh.
On one of your slides, I see nine 3-bedrooms.
Yes.
And that's going to be allotted 15 parking spaces. So what does that translate, if you divide 9 into 15 by 9, that's like about maybe
1 3/4?
15, about 1.5.
It should be 80% roughly, because it's a 20% parking reduction. The zoning ordinance specifies for buildings that are mixed use in nature. So it's 18 parking spaces. It would be 18 parking spaces normally, but then we multiply that the 18 times 0.8. And that's how all these numbers are developed.
Okay, well, it seems like it's not enough parking for a 3-bedroom. But we'll get to that as we get further down the line.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is the first floor of the building, the street level. This is of the proposed building. So of course, right now there's a 60 space parking lot in this area. So there would be a new area here proposed as indicated in the plans for a wood greens. It's shown in the project perspectives, as well as inline tenant spaces, basically in the same location that they exist today. This area in the yellow is amenity space that would serve the 5 floors above, 5 apartment floors above. Of course, retailers need space for loading, unloading of product, and that's provided here.
What is that?
This is unloading, basically loading for the retail goods that would be sold in these stores. And this is the entrance and exit to the parking garage. The Planning Commission, when it reviewed this project, asked if there wouldn't be a concern of cars trying to exit onto northbound Park Plaza Drive during times when there's heavy traffic. And in fact, the traffic flow out of this driveway would be a right turn only. So that's the first floor.
And I'm assuming those people will figure out the back way that avoids John Daly in about 2 days.
They would only
like
use
all the
Park
rest
Plaza.
of us know that way.
Residential.
Well, maybe not everybody, but everyone who lives close by knows it.
Right. The occupants of the apartments above would only use Park Plaza exclusively. There would be no reason for them to ever need to use the entrance off of John Daly into Westlake Center Drive. Westlake Center Drive is the name of the drive that goes down the middle of the shopping center. I should have pointed that out earlier. There would be no need for those upper floors, whereas today, the office uses, which are higher turnover, actually need to use Westlake Center Drive entrance from John Daly if they're not using the parking structure, of course, that's provided to the south of the Ross retail store. We're going to go through these slides relatively quickly. This is the second floor. It just shows residential units. But on this floor, it's important to note, is a courtyard space that or actually two of them. When we look at the subsequent floors, and this is a landscape plan of that, when we look at the subsequent floors, those floors are open. So that courtyard space is open above, and that's shown, and we'll see it in the project renderings.
And so under that, under those courtyards is where the retail space is.
That's right.
So kind of a park on top.
Right. These slides a little out of order, but essentially this is a landscape plan for those open space areas, and this is some of the amenity space elements, the pavers, the type of landscaping that we might see in that area. Again, Kimco's trying to attract, a certain income level, of course, to this sort of a project. The market demands high quality product, and that's what the landscape architect has programmed into this building for sure. So again, we'll breeze through these. There's some terrace space also on some of the floors. But this slide is this is an axonometric drawing of the proposed building. So this would be looking to the northeast, like if we were hovering over like Starbucks here, looking to the northeast, and there we see those courtyard spaces again popping up. So that's the amenity, the open space the zoning ordinance requires for uses like apartments. And
then it looks like those apartments have a patio area or lanai kind of area as well, looking over the park area.
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah.
The exterior units. Yeah, and you can also see in this axonometric drawing some of the things we'll talk about in a little while, which is improved pedestrian connection to the parking garage to the south of the Ross retail store, San Mateo Credit Union's here. Some of the pedestrian connections interior to the parking.
I have never seen that parking lot that empty, though. If that's what it is now, I'm going to leave now and go to Trader Joe's.
Here's another sort of an axo view or aerial view of the project looking to the southwest. Say if we're over Westlake north of John Daly Boulevard. These slides are perspective drawings to provide the council members with an idea of the architectural quality. This drawing in particular shows, this is looking to the northwest, standing in Park Plaza Drive. So the mattress firm's here, showing the new vehicular pedestrian connection through the shopping center, east-west flow. Again, high-quality architecture. I don't think the staff report has any conditions of approval on the architecture. This is a very high-quality architecture. We didn't really need to pick it apart a whole lot. Another perspective, I think this is looking to the southwest, maybe. No, I'm sorry, this is looking to the northeast. If you're standing maybe in front of, like this would be Mattress Firm. So you'd be standing in front of Trader Joe's here. Good building articulation, not a lot of blank, ugly walls to look at. The building's actually somewhat in scale with the way Westlake Shopping Center was developed. There was the shopping center at the most intensive core, and then apartments built around it, and then single-family residential, of course, as the neighborhoods spread out, if you will. And so this building sort of fits within that sort of theme of having more intensive residential as we move center to the core of what's proposed. This is John Daly Boulevard looking to the southwest. This is Westlake Center Drive looking to the east, southeast. There's wood greens here. This is the shopping center sign. Just another view looking to the east. Probably in front of the TJ Maxx parking lots where you'd be standing here. These are just perspective drawings of the inline retail uses that would replace. So this right now is a parking lot right now. Chipotle would be around here, just to give some perspective. Good amount of mature landscaping would go into this, of course. Separated sidewalk, protect pedestrians from the adjacent drive aisles. Just another retail view. Some photo simulations. Again, kind of showing the project actually is not visually all that intrusive. So one of the things I'd mentioned previously were the stair modifications. So San Mateo Credit Union, for those of you who are familiar with the center, is here. This is the first floor of Ross, and Mattress Firm is sort of over here. The applicant is, again, trying to enhance the shopping experience and perhaps even more importantly, maximize the use of the garage that's located south of the Ross retail store. And it's felt that part of the problem with that is of people maybe not using it as much as they could, is the connection, the stairway connection, for any of you who have used it, is sort of down a dark stairwell. And they're really trying to open that up and provide basically an open air, as well as retain the elevator access, of course, but provide an open air pedestrian experience that lands essentially in front of the credit union. And that's what these drawings show. Just a little zoom in of that. So that's essentially the project introduction in a nutshell. We're going to get in a little bit into the just other areas besides architecture. One of the items, of course, that the staff reviews in any residential project is the project's consistency with the affordable housing ordinance. This project is a rental project, so there are no units proposed for sale. The current ordinance requires that the applicant pay a $25 per square foot fee. And if we do the math, 142,791 square feet equates to about $3.5 million. So the applicant would pay that as an affordable housing fee. The council probably knows what the staff uses that for, but in case they don't, essentially we take that money and we use it to, do various projects related to affordable housing, whether it's requiring or acquiring projects that, other residential projects in town that, may warrant city intervention in terms of them, being converted to non-affordable units, things like this. So that money is used.
And haven't we in the past used some of that money to join with nonprofits
That's
and
right.
public contributions to create whole new projects?
That's accurate. Yes, we do
Like
use
right
that money
on
to
Mission
leverage.
Street, the new one,
Sure.
there on Westlake and.
When is that money made available to us?
So essentially, the money is paid at the time of building permit issuance. The ordinance stipulates when it's to be paid, and that's when they would, in essence, write a check for that amount.
For the whole amount?
Yeah.
So before the shovel goes in the ground,
Before they receive a building permit, yeah.
which is good. Yeah, we don't want to wait till the end.
So
So with that, the affordable housing ordinance, right now, as it states, the applicant is doing an in lieu fee of $25 per square foot, right?
That's
That's
right.
what it is right now. And then it says here, if we were to adopt any revisions or updates to affordable housing ordinance with that,
yes.
I mean,
The staff's well aware that there may be a change. There have been some changes to state law that actually allow us to require units
yes.
as a part of rental apartment projects.
So at this point, the applicant hasn't proposed any affordable units on site?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, they've only proposed paying the fee. So cognizant of the changes to state law and the potential for the city council to adopt revisions to the affordable housing ordinance, the city staff has had discussions with the applicant and made them aware that The city council could, in fact, in the future, adopt an ordinance that requires them to actually provide units if the ordinance relates to issuance of a building permit. So even if
So
they
between
receive
now
approval
and
tonight.
then, yeah.
That's right.
So this is, 3.5 million is the minimum that they're gonna have to contribute. And if something else comes
That's
along,
true.
new laws, then it could
They
be
would be
more.
subject to the ordinance at the time of
Right.
that, if the
Because
city
right now,
council-
state law prevents us from,
Actually, no.
Adding
law's
more,
been-
right?
In January, there was state law actually allowed. We just need to have an ordinance for the
That's right.
city. So actually, it changed as of January of this year.
So a local ordinance needs to be adopted, but state law itself actually has
Yeah.
been changed to pave the path for that to happen. So the city staff has had conversations with the applicant about the potential for the ordinance to change, and we actually baked right into the conditions of approval, as well as in the staff report text itself, that, and we can read it if you'd like, should the city council adopt any revisions to the affordable housing ordinance, the applicant shall comply with the requirements of those revisions or updates, including requirements to provide affordable units, or pay fees that are different from those that are existing in the, affordable housing ordinance. So we wanted to make it very clear moving forward that should this council desire to approve the project, that could be something on the horizon for them.
With that mentioned, that there may be revisions down the line to our affordable housing ordinance. At this point, it's an in lieu fee. If the requirements were to be on site, how does this apply?
If the council adopted an ordinance that required that, and it made the text of the new ordinance applicable to, say, for example, a building permit, they would have to comply with that ordinance, and that's the whole purpose behind this condition of approval.
but then they wouldn't be paying the 3.5 million.
It would depend on what the ordinance said.
Yeah.
So is that correct?
Yeah, so essentially, it would really, the discussions right now, as it pertains to the amendments of the ordinance, is that if the council were to adopt an affordable housing ordinance that require the units on site, that they would be subject to that ordinance, meaning they would be required to do that up until building permit. So it would apply to this current project.
When you say up until building permit, what if they pulled their building permit already?
So if they were to pull the building permit, it just really depends on how we craft the ordinance.
Because
So
if they pulled the building permit, then. Hi.
Yeah, I mean, once the building permit is issued, it's typical that that's sort of the end of the requirement at that point. So
Right.
it would be
So
about
that's
adopting
good
the
clarification.
ordinance prior to the issuance of building.
Right.
But I mean, I just want to be absolutely clear, when I've met with the Affordable Housing Committee, and we talked about the new affordable housing ordinance, and how we may have to provide some alternatives as part of the ordinance, and with this condition, they would be subject to the ordinance of requiring it, but potentially the alternatives that are provided.
I understand, but you just mentioned if they pulled their building permit, then that relieves them from this ordinance, the ordinance, if we were to pull it.
Right,
So
it wouldn't
that's-
apply to
that's
them.
Information I needed to know. Thank you.
The project's been subject, of course, to CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act. The city has essentially a consultant that it hires to help us with the environmental review, and that consultant prepared an initial study for this project as mandated by CEQA, and that initial study determined that a mitigated negative declaration was an appropriate document for the city council to consider and adopt, given that there were not significant impacts associated with the project, and the environmental impacts that were associated with the project could be mitigated to a level of insignificance. The specific areas of mitigation, which are included in the mitigation monitoring and reporting program that are also would be adopted by the city council, include air quality, biological, cultural, hazardous materials, hydrology, and noise impacts. Of course, Traffic is a primary concern. The staff report indicated that the Planning Commission, both in its review of the preliminary plan and the precise plan, as well as I believe the City Council expressed some concerns about the traffic that existed and would be associated, that exists in the project area and would be associated with increased construction activity at the site. The traffic consultant actually is here tonight, a representative from Fear and Peers. It's the city's consultant on this topic. They prepared a 14 intersection traffic study, which evaluated not only the intersections in the vicinity of the project, but even extending over across Interstate 280. They are going to give a brief presentation to you, as is Kimco actually, following my presentation. So I think this is an area that really warrants that an expert provide you with some information. And yeah, so they'll do that. The traffic study's findings that were essentially that the project had fewer vehicle trips than the existing development, and the reason for that in a nutshell, and Fair and Peers can explain this in more detail if you'd like, but essentially office uses, which is what exists above the Westlake Shopping Center today, have a high traffic generation and high turnover throughout the day, where residential doesn't necessarily have that. People, the people who do go to work, and some people don't, they're retired or for whatever reason they're just not leaving. They go to work during peak period times. Then there's not a constant turnover of traffic throughout the day. And so at any rate, the traffic study, of course, found that the project would generate fewer than trips during peak periods than the existing project. There was some concern, I think, raised by the city staff about providing better signage of people entering the shopping center from westbound John Daly Drive into Westlake Center Drive, and we think that can be mitigated with just better striping on the ground. So we don't have people who are trying to enter the shopping center, can't actually do that, and or people that don't know that there's a couple of lanes they can actually enter into. There was an issue related to that, so just a couple of minutes on that for me, and again, Fair and Peers can delve into details if you'd like. The bottom line on this, however, is that in the cumulative finding, which is the project existing, and plus the project, plus the cumulative condition, which considers all the development in the area that might be, was that the proposed project would not appreciably change operation from the pre-project cumulative condition at any study intersections. And I won't read the rest of what that says, but again, Fair and Peers can go into more detail if you'd like, about what's going on over on John Daly and Universera. That's a existing condition that's going to be kind of hard to address. It involves Caltrans. There's some things that are, One of the things that we look at, the city staff looks at, and both the Planning Commission and City Council should consider when reviewing a project this large, is what the impact to the city's revenue stream is going to be. We hire experts to do that, and the expert hired for this project determined that the annual net fiscal impact of this project was plus about $350,000 a year. So, and of course, we just provided the upper chart to show you that an analysis had been done. Of course, I believe it's an 80-page document that comes to the conclusion of this table. But they take a close look at what the impacts of a project would be to all of the things that residents need: libraries, police, fire service, and then mix in what the heightened retail use would be of this project, because of course we're replacing retailers that are existing with new retailers who, in theory and demonstrated in the fiscal analysis, would provide a higher amount of sales tax. Of course, a new building is going to bring in additional property tax revenue, this sort of thing. So a net benefit. The Planning Commission discussion topics, they're outlined in the staff report: traffic, accessible parking. There was a commissioner who thought maybe a mural would be nice to have that reflected Daly City's cultural attributes, a flagpole, And then lastly, yes, the lack of affordable, the actual lack of units inside the project was that's something that one of the commissioners mentioned. The Planning Commission recommends approval of the project. I'm going to, if the council members don't have any questions, we'd like to load Michael Strauss from Kimco. Would like to give a presentation, and then we'd like to follow that with, again, a brief presentation by Fear and Peers.
Thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate it. Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the Daly City Council, it is such a pleasure to be here this evening. I should introduce myself. I am Michael Strauss. I am Director of Development for the Western region for Kimco. I office right here at the shopping center, right above the 15 Southgate building. So it's a bit of a home game for me. So I again appreciate the opportunity. Just want to take just a few minutes to walk you through some of the high points of the project. Much of this presentation will look familiar. This is very similar to the presentation that we made in December when we were here for the preliminary meeting. Since that time, we have spent a lot of time meeting with resident groups and thinking a lot about the project, but substantively, it's effectively the same project that you saw previously. During that time, there was also the initial study was completed, so that accounts for the lag in the time. I have no idea which of these buttons to hit.
The one on the right.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you very much. The Westlake Shopping Center, we're all familiar with it, but just to review some of the high points, it's almost 700,000 square feet right on John Daly between Park Plaza Drive and Lake Merced. Home Depot, Safeway, Trader Joe's, Walgreens, Ross, DSW, Burlington, lots of big box retailers here. Most of our retailers do very, very well and generate a lot of sales taxes and give the residents of Daly City an opportunity to spend their hard-earned money in here in town. Kimco, the firm that owns the shopping center and that employs yours truly, purchased the shopping center back in 2002, and the last major renovation was 2005 until 2007. As staff so eloquently articulated and explained, we're proposing to replace two buildings that date, well, at least one of them dates from the 1950s, the other's probably from the early 1960s, totaling about 30,000 square feet of retail and about almost 25,000 square feet of medical and dental tenants. The new building, as staff articulated, has 179 apartment units on 5 floors, over slightly more retail than is there now, and the 260 parking stalls. This project was last before this council, as I mentioned, in December of 17. We had the preliminary hearings with Planning Commission in November of 17, and then with this council in December, and we had the pleasure of presenting this project to the Planning Commission in early May of this year. We talked about the work that we've done since December. We in our meetings, in the hearing with this council, in the hearings with the planning commissioners, we heard a lot of comments about traffic and circulation and keeping the small businesses that are doing so well and that are such amenities for the entire community. And so you'll see the approach that we have taken on all of those in 1 second. I'm just gonna. I know that Fair and Peers is here as well, so I won't spend too much time talking about traffic. But I did want to hit some of the high points because we understand how important it is for the residents immediately around the shopping center, as well as for those that are passing through or spending time at the center. The project makes traffic better. We understand there are some challenges in this part of Westlake and around the shopping center. One of the key motivations for for this project that you see before you is that we're trying to improve what's there now and do it in some artful, creative, and intelligent ways. We reduce morning and evening peak hour traffic. Let's keep this in perspective. It reduces them on the margins. We're focused on not making things worse, but it does, it does in the big picture try make the circulation better, and it does it in part by removing the high traffic medical uses and moving them to the back of the center, which should improve the circulation. You can get to it from more directions in the back of the center. There's deeper parking fields. We'll get to that. By shrinking and relocating the busy medical offices, it pulls traffic away from the John Daly main entrance. That was the entrance that staff mentioned. That tends to, on occasion, be a bit congested. Not all the time. Overall, it seems to function pretty well, but at times it can be a little bit busy. By pulling the medical offices towards the back of the center, we think that will be improved. One of probably the best the best improvement or most impactful improvement, I should say, for the circulation of the shopping center is the new driveway that staff identified between the current mattress store and the new building. By getting cars in and out of there, that'll be a release valve when the surface parking field where everybody tends to want to park gets too full. Right now, on occasion, we've heard anecdotally that somebody can get stuck in there, and it's just so congested and so frustrating, and that's what makes people want to go somewhere else to shop. That's what we want to avoid. We want to improve the customer experience. That new access drive also will mean that there will be a way to get into the center of the shopping center before you go all the way down Park Plaza Drive to that Safeway entrance, which again tends to be a little bit jammed on occasion. That's because everybody wants to get into the shopping center, and those that have had a great experience want to leave, and we just want to improve that circulation. Wanted to make a couple of points. The apartment residents that will be hopefully living in this proposed project will enter directly from Park Plaza Drive. They will not typically come into the heart of the shopping center. So that's another way that we're trying to relieve some of the congestion by making it easy for the residents coming home. They don't want to fight the traffic trying to go to Trader Joe's. So we're trying to make it easy for them to try to keep them away from the shopping population. We talked about moving the medical offices to Southgate. Those are the deepest parking fields. Now, it's been pointed out that sometimes even that big parking field in front of Safeway can fill up. How could it fill up? There are so many spaces. Well, that's a very, very popular parking field, but when it fills up the most is in the evenings. When people are trying to pop into Safeway and probably on the weekends. During the evenings and on the weekends, people don't typically have as many medical-related appointments. So it's a way to try to share some of the deepest and most desirable parking fields in the shopping center. We also, as staff mentioned, there is a condition of approval for a new signage program. We do anticipate doing a new wayfinding sign package to try to, again, help people figure out where they're trying to go and have the cars as well as the pedestrians circulate better and get quicker to where they're trying to go, get them to park, and then get them onto their feet so that they can walk around the shopping centers. All right, big picture. Why mixed use? The Westlake Shopping Center, we think, is a very natural location for adding a use complementary to the current shopping center retail use. We're near BART. There's Samtrans bus service galore, beautiful bike paths. We're near the freeway. The idea, again, is to get people out of their cars, to get people to where they're trying to go as quickly and as efficiently as possible. We can't ignore the big picture here, which is that retail is in a state of flux. Shopping centers are changing. You see the Amazon and the other online retailers are trying to keep people from going to shopping centers and trying they're changing the dynamic. Our solution and the solution of a lot of the retail owners is to make our shopping centers nicer, make them more filled with amenities, make them pleasant places to go, make them, add more street trees, nice pedestrian experiences, nicer sidewalks, patios with restaurants. If we build a nice enough place, then people will want to come out and want to be social and want to interact with other human beings as opposed to screens and UPS drivers. Overall, also another big picture dynamic going on right now is it's not lost on us. When Assemblymember Ting and Councilmember Sylvester were engaged earlier in this meeting, we all know the Bay Area needs more housing. Certainly, Daly City is doing its part, but we think that this adding potentially another 179 units will be one more small step towards in the right direction. I would also comment that a lot of times the additional housing would come at a great cost, which is in the news a lot today, and that is the dreaded D word, displacement. The opportunity here is that it's an opportunity to add additional residential units without displacing any current residents. So let's see, we're wrapping up. I promise we're almost done here. Opportunity to improve the circulation, the operations, and the quality of an older, tired, the portions that may be some of the oldest and most tired in the shopping center can potentially be addressed through this project. This project, as we proposed it, will, according to the fiscal analysis, be a huge win for the general fund, for the city of Daly City. Additional sales tax, there's more retail space, which we talked about before. Higher quality, nicer spaces. Brand new facilities that will generate greater sales tax. And then what we do in this part of the center, this is not included in the analysis, but by dressing up this part of the center, it'll make the whole center more vibrant. Investment begets investment. So this will be a great way to get some momentum back for the Westlake Shopping Center, which has admittedly not seen a lot of improvement, at least in the last 10 years since the last major renovation. The total cost for this project is over $100 million. That's a huge investment in this asset, in this part of the city. As staff mentioned earlier, there's affordable housing fees as well as other fees. Let's see. While I'm there, I just wanted to comment. We're happy to talk further about affordable housing. The reason that the applicant has started or is only proposing the fee in lieu at this point is because that's the only option per the ordinance. We understand, staff made clear to this council, and I want to second that. I guess I don't get to vote, but I'll emphasize it, which is just that we understand that this council will likely or may see a revised ordinance. We look forward to reviewing that, and we're not opposed to an on-site inclusionary component, and look forward to reviewing that. But that's the only reason that at this point we're only proposing the fee in lieu is because that's the only option. We look forward to having further discussions with staff and this council on that topic. The staff also mentioned in the staff report the vertical transportation. I don't want to understate the importance of that. The parking structure above Ross and Trader Joe's right now is underutilized, and it's because, well, we think in large part because the vertical transportation experience is less than ideal. We can do better. That stairway. It's in need of some tender, loving change, I guess, to mix some metaphors there. We can do better with the elevator lobby as well. The improvement that we're proposing allows us to carve out where that stair is currently. That'll bring some daylight and fresh air into that stale elevator lobby, and pulling the stair out, we think will make it a much more attractive location to park for those going to Trader Joe's, those going to the credit union, Ross, as well as to the new restaurants and retail spaces that we are proposing. let's see. Before I get to the final, the last point is just that we understand that that many of the small businesses in the buildings that are proposed for demolition are very important to a lot of members of the community and to members of this council as well. We have been working with many of these tenants. We plan to relocate about 70% of the retail and restaurant tenants that are there currently, as well as about 70% of the medical, office, and dental tenants. Many of the people in this room frequent not only the retail businesses but also some of those medical tenants. So we're making great pains to really to keep as many of those hardworking and valued tenants that have been so important to this community for so many years. The point is that we're trying to improve this part of the center, add an interesting dynamic, go mixed use, as so many other cities and communities in the Bay Area are starting to do. Add vibrancy and life to this part of the center, and the aim is a better experience for all, for the residents, for our tenants, for the community, and for anybody who would like to come to the Westlake Shopping Center and to this part of Daly City. So that's what I have. Happy to answer questions, or happy to cede the floor to the traffic engineer, depending on whatever the council wants.
Thank you for your presentation. At this point, do my colleagues have any questions?
Yeah. So when you last came before us, one of my big concerns was the small businesses and the retail.
Right.
Can you give us a little more specific as to some of the small businesses that hopefully you will be retaining, and where we stand on trying to keep a large part of them?
Right. I'm happy to, Mr. Vice Mayor. We currently have 18 tenants that are operating in the two buildings, Building M and Building N. Building N, I want to say, is the medical office building, which has some retail on the ground floor, and Building M is the building with the Chipotle and the Tani's and Nation's Giant Hamburgers, etc. Of those 18 tenants, we expect to relocate probably between 12 and 13 of those. I'm reluctant to name specifics, but I can identify some categories.
Okay.
For somebody who may like burritos, there is currently a tenant. It's likely that there will still be those burritos when this building reopens. Same for a percent, perhaps if somebody likes quick service Japanese food that is cooked right in front of you. That is my personal favorite restaurant. I would say that there's a high likelihood that the use will still be there.
Great.
Some of the obvious tenants that maybe aren't of the highest quality, that aren't doing the greatest business. Some of those tenants may not make it, but the idea is to try to keep as many of the really strong, vibrant small businesses as we possibly can. I think we've made some great efforts to do that.
How about tailoring?
I think a tailor would be an important use for the new building. Let me qualify this though, just by saying that these deals are in many cases haven't been done. Just in terms of our timeline, we wouldn't anticipate actually, and this goes into Madam Mayor, your questions earlier when it came to the pulling the building permit and the affordable housing fees. Our timeline is that we wouldn't expect to actually pull a demolition permit or a building permit until probably early in 2020. We expect it'll take a full year for us to relocate all these tenants that I'm describing for you, and then we have to remediate the building, and then so we're a ways away from, even in the best of circumstances, from actually being able to take these buildings down, which means that we do have time to complete all of these deals, but we have been working with many of them in good faith. and absolutely look forward to continuing to and are happy to explore other ways to demonstrate that good faith or ensure it in some way. But we're excited to keep all those tenants. One thing I didn't touch on was that we have some vacancies along the Westlake Center Drive. Those are going to be the new homes of the retail tenants that we are planning to relocate. Wherever you see a vacancy right now is a future home to one of those existing tenants, most likely. So we've got spaces to put these tenants, and we're negotiating in good faith. We have a number of or at least I believe a few leases actually signed so far, but we expect for that to really pick up in the months ahead as we approach further into the project.
What's happening with the TJ Maxx?
The TJ Maxx is not part of this project. I can say that we've had a lot of really good demand for that site. There are offers pending on that, and we don't expect that will stay vacant for very long. It's a very, very visible site, probably one of the most visible in the shopping center. So I think we feel really good about the opportunities there. But that's not technically part of this project. But I'm happy to answer that. So.
And the only other question I had is, so in some of what I have noticed in high volume spaces where there is a reliance on Uber and Lyft, and I've noticed some places have a well-managed system where if you're calling for a Lyft or Uber and you want to be dropped off, there's a designated area so that we don't have cars coming into the center and it's just at one spot. Like, is that something you're considering or have put some thought into?
Yes, and there's as Councilmember Christensen pointed out, there is an existing bus right here. We've got a drop-off specifically with the Ubers and Lyfts and ride-sharing services in mind, just behind it right here. We have not identified a central location in the greater shopping center. It's tough to figure out where that would be, and the center is so large. But certainly for the proposed building, we're proposing an area specifically for that, right here, right in front on Park Plaza Drive, where they'll be able to pull off and get out. And that would be also convenient for a drop-off for most of the rest of the shopping center as well. So we have thought about that, and staff was careful to bring that up at the very beginning of this process, that was something that we needed to address.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sylvester.
Good evening.
Hello, Councilmember Sylvester.
We didn't hear the study on the parking yet, but I'm just going to assume from what you said so far that it's going to be less trips. My concern is, like, say, Belmar Avenue or the peripheral streets leading up. These streets have right-of-way parking. And with this new center, they're probably going to lose some of that because some folks may not want to park at the mall, the center, but they're going to park on the peripheral, taking up some of the parking spaces. But I guess it's going to happen. But that's a concern that I have. We're going to have that extra, that may happen. Okay. But I don't need an answer on that. I'm just giving you my points that I have a concern about. I'm glad you answered the question about inclusionary housing. Mr. Longhausen made mention earlier that we have no ordinance, but one is coming.
Right.
It's coming.
We have been made aware.
And we're very concerned. Daly City is trying to do its end to, whether it's rental or whether it's for sale, inclusionary housing is very important. You mentioned about some signs to help folks get their way around the shopping center, have we thought about neon signs, putting them up? Say, for instance, you're coming down John Daly, and there's a sign, it says, parking lot number 1, 120 spots available. Parking lot number 2, 320 spots available. Main parking lot, 50 spots available. I mean, I think that would take some, if folks know, and then I think you can relieve some traffic congestion. Oh, I see that sign there, I'm going to the parking lot. Because we're trying to increase usage to these parking lots, which are hardly unutilized. So it's just a suggestion that I had. I live on the 4th floor of your new building, and I want to charge my car. What are we going to do about that?
Sure, can I answer that and then hit some of the other points that
Well,
you made?
yeah, but it's something to think about.
Right,
So going into the future, and I'm sure we're going to migrate to EVs, and I've seen other complexes where in the parking subterranean, which you're going to have 2 of them, where they may designate maybe 2 on each floor, but you have to pay for charging and for the convenience. I mean, I don't want somebody from the 2nd floor throwing an extension cord outside of their window to charge their cars.
Now you're giving people ideas.
I'm not sure the fire marshal would appreciate that either.
And have we thought about shuttle service? I mean, it's a thought with Ceremony and Westlake. Maybe the 2 centers can come together and develop a shuttle service so that folks, they have their choice. They can go to Ceremony or they can go to Westlake. Or the shuttle stops at BART Station. I think if we all collaborate together and say, you know,
Got
somebody
a lot of buses there.
coming from San Francisco, and specifically, it's just for Westlake and Ceremony, or just Westlake, and it can expand later. So that's just a thought. All right, the last one I want to bring up. Parking management.
Right.
You said earlier that folks who live within the buildings, they would enter the building on Park Plaza Drive.
Yes.
What's to say somebody owns 3 cars and decide to come down John Daly and park in the parking lot where the retail is instead of going into the garage? How are we going to manage that?
Well, I think that's part of the parking management plan. We'll have to, especially at the beginning, I mean, it's about training people to make the good choices and good decisions. And part of that is enforcement. And you start with a robust enforcement program.
Right.
And we'll have to make sure that we see that if there are people that are walking from the parking lot into the residential, that we're going to have to note that. And we're going to have to look at and identify those cars and ask these people to make better decisions. Part of the benefit of putting new residential in a shopping center environment is that we've got, I don't remember the count specifically, but we've got 2,500 parking spaces here. There are plenty of parking spaces, and it's up to us as the owner and manager to manage that effectively. I believe that's part of the parking management plan that is required, that we have to present to staff, and I would expect there would probably be some teeth to it, that if we're not operating effectively, I'm sure that staff will let us, will certainly let us know. But your point is absolutely a good one.
Thank you.
We know that that's been one of the challenges with some of the other apartments in this part of the city.
All right, my last one is not basically a question, but it's a comment.
Okay.
Looking at the renditions there, no, it's okay. I'm sure everybody's seen them.
Okay.
I would say I would love to live in that building. You might get me to give up some of my cars as a result because everything's right there. So I just wanted to, thought I'd put that out there.
Thank you very much, Councilmember.
Good job.
Although I would caution you that extension cord idea, we're taking note of that, so that if we see an extension cord, we're going to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from my colleagues?
No, just thank you for presenting.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll leave my comments till the end of
Thank you
the
very much,
hearing.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I have a public If the council's willing to receive a presentation from Fair and Piers, should take only a few minutes. It's regarding
Yes,
traffic.
I think it's important for us to see the traffic study. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, esteemed members of the council and the city staff, thanks for having me here. My name is Drew Levitt, and I am a consultant with Fair and Piers Transportation Consultants. I and my colleague Matt Goyne are here tonight to briefly walk through the high-level findings of a transportation impact study that we prepared pursuant to this project. I'm not going to see a lot of surprises in this, both because this is very similar to a presentation that we showed you back in December, and because with all due respect, Mr. Van Lonkhuizen and Mr. Strauss have stolen most of my thunder and presented most of the findings. So the first thing that I would like to highlight is the geographic scope of the analysis that Fair and Piers performed for this project. With the help of city staff, we identified a study area consisting of 14 intersections, as well as 3 highway off-ramps along I-280. We also conducted weekday AM, weekday PM, and weekend midday traffic analyses. That weekend midday is above and beyond the standard components of a transportation impact study, but it was felt by all involved that it was important given that this is a shopping center and that's a peak shopping period. In brief, the purpose of a transportation impact study is to identify transportation impacts which occur from a vehicular perspective if project added traffic causes delay to increase at study intersections from an acceptable level of service, which here in Daly City is level of service D, up to an unacceptable level of service, which is E or F. The intersection level of service, by the way, reflects an average over all turning movements. The other form of transportation impact that can occur would be if the project were inconsistent with an applicable plan or program, such as the Daly City Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. We did evaluate those plans as well and found the project was consistent with those.
I'm going to ask you to just speak up a little louder.
My apologies. Yes, indeed.
I think it's your height away from the microphone, so just belt it out.
I'll try to bring it down to ground level. As others before me have said tonight, we find that the proposed project would reduce trips in and out of the Westlake Shopping Center at its main entrance at the intersection of John Daly Boulevard and the drive we're referring to as Westlake Center Drive. The reduction would be approximately 20 to 30 trips in a given peak hour, and that's about a 2 to 4% reduction on existing traffic volume. So a small, but still present reduction. Now, how would this occur? 2 reasons. One, we compared existing trip generation to trip generation under the proposed project. And we found that, as Mr. Strauss said, reducing the intense land use of medical and dental offices and replacing them with apartments actually results in reduced trip generation compared to existing. This analysis is in accordance with industry standard methodologies and also accounts for travel patterns specific to Daly City, the proximity of the project site to BART and to local and regional transit, and the proximity of the new residential units to retail services. So that's one reason why you're seeing fewer trips in and out of that main entrance. The other reason is because of the circulation modifications that are an integral part of this project. As others again have noted, at present, to access the main parking fields within the Westlake Shopping Center, a traveler would have to enter via John Daly Boulevard at the Westlake Center driveway. There's 2 left turn pockets there, substantial left turn volume, but that is the main access point, and that can create congestion, and that can create especially when that field is full, it can create unhappy circulation patterns because the structured parking garages on the east and west sides of the site are difficult to access when you're already within that central field. So again, this figure here shows the sole access point into the central field. By contrast, under the proposed project, you would augment that single access point to the internal field with the new vehicular link from Park Plaza Drive to the central parking field, as well as shifting a good deal of demand to the residential driveway along Park Plaza Drive. And as others again have noted, inhabitants of the residential units would access that solely via Park Plaza Drive, taking demand off of John Daly Boulevard. So those are the trip generation, just to recap, trip generation and circulation changes are the reason why we would see this project reduce demand at the hotly contested intersection of John Daly Boulevard and the Westlake Center Drive. No project can solve all traffic problems, but the key finding here was that we did not identify any significant traffic impacts. In fact, of the 14 intersections we examined, we identified no changes to level of service and only a relatively rare increase by 1 to 3 seconds or decrease by 1 to 3 seconds of average vehicular delay at the study intersections. That makes sense given that the trip generation associated with the proposed project is negative compared with what's already at the site. Specifically, for the purpose of traffic impacts, we did not identify any intersections where the level of service worsened to level of service E or F. Just to recap again, low or net negative trip generation during the 3 study periods that we analyzed, again, just because apartments generate fewer trips than medical and dental offices do. And finally, the circulation changes, specifically including the introduction of a new vehicular link from Park Plaza Drive to the inner parking field, would disperse traffic away from the most overloaded intersections in the vicinity of the project. So that's our transportation impact study in a 3-minute nutshell. That TIS incidentally formed the basis for the traffic and transportation chapter of the initial study, which was, of course, part of the agenda packet for this meeting. So that wraps up my presentation for the time being. My colleague Matt and I will be glad to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the traffic study? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So at this point, we'll open the public hearing. We have a motion to open the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. At this point, we have Mike Mahoney with Republic Services.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Appreciate being the first to go up tonight. It's 3:30 rolls around pretty early tomorrow morning. I just wanted to say I'm familiar with the development. I think this is the 3rd presentation I've seen, and you've gone through a lot of the renderings, the site pictures, the landscaping, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm happy to report that your development team with Kimco and their colleagues has been very, very proactive in reaching out to us. And I think that Councilman Sylvester pointed out, or Christensen as well, the area where UPS would service the trucks, where there would be unloading of trucks. And they've gone through that type of detail with us. I have a whole set of plans in my office that are this big. So I just wanted to let you know that in that perspective, they're really taking into account what the future of this building is going to be when we service this. And, that takes into account the garbage as well as the recycling and the compactors. So I'm, here to let you know that. And then one important, critically important item, I ran into several of our drivers after lunch today, told them I was coming over here tonight, and they said, whatever you do, make sure that Nation's Giant Hamburgers are relocated. So with that, I just wanted to again nod that, with that level of detail, I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to service that building, whatever the outcome, in a very professional and effective manner for the city.
Thank you very much. Carissa Chu. With Structure Hair Design.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Carissa Chu, and I'm addressing you tonight on behalf of my father, Kerry Chu, and his business, Structure Hair Design. My dad started this salon 25 years ago at the Westlake Shopping Center and has been there since 1993. As of today, Kimco Realty has not renewed the lease for his business or given him any other location in the mall. This predicament thoroughly affects our family. A relocation will leave much uncertainty in the livelihood of our business and therefore greatly impacts the future of Structure Hair Design. The salon and the neighboring businesses serve the many members of Daly City's community. While we are not against Kimco's project, we feel that the existing businesses, like Structure Hair Design, are being unfairly omitted without any cogitation or consideration. Our plea to Kimco Realty is for the chance to remain at Westlake Shopping Center, securing a lease renewal for the future years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Bridget Sharifi. Cigarettes and
Cigarettes are cheaper.
sorry.
Hi, how are you? The remaining stores on the outside and a few on the inside of the plaza are family-owned and mom-and-pop stores. We have become close to our neighbors and built a relationship with the community and created friendships. For over 3 years, we have been on a month-to-month basis for lease, and the projected project has not given any guarantee for a spot. Over the years, Kimco has pushed out many of the family-owned businesses. The coffee shop was forced to close due to an ultimatum to either move inside, and if they did choose to do so, the rent was extremely high, which they could not afford. In place is now Sprint. Westlake Liquors closed its doors as the result of increased rent and has remained unoccupied. When this has been unoccupied, our store has been robbed from the inside because it was not properly monitored, because there's not security. The intent is to push out the little guy and bring in large corporations. Sadly, the store owners have not been notified regarding the demolition process, been given the opportunity to voice their concerns or offered new spots. Many community members have voiced their concerns for the changes in the neighborhood. We are asking for you to save our livelihood and help for the remaining mom and pop stores to remain open. We today have spoken to many of the owners. Tanny himself said he would not know what he would do if they changed spots. I mean, the problem is that if you offer something inside, the rent goes up substantially. These are little stores. We've been there for many, many years. They don't have the high overhead or the ability to pay for the rent. Over $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 that they're increasing by. And every year it's increased. We've been on a month-to-month basis for 3 years. And I understand that there's a need for regeneration, rejuvenation, but you can't take out the little stores and the little people that are there. In many of these stores, the community has access.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kristen Girk on behalf of Melanie Hildebrand. Hildebrand Real Estate Group.
I'm Kristen Girk. I'm reading a letter Melanie Hildebrand submitted. It says, tonight, Monday, May 10th, you have an opportunity to approve a project that is sure to bring tremendous vitality to the Westlake Shopping Center. I urge you to consider approval of the mixed-use project being brought forward by Kimco. I have been a property owner, realtor, and property manager in Daly City for over 40 years. I believe it's important to continually upgrade retail and residential properties in our community to keep it vibrant. Housing is desperately needed in the Bay Area, and approval of this mixed-use project will increase the housing inventory. As we all know, retail stores struggle today with the continued increase of online purchases, and our city loses sales tax revenue as a result. The proposed project creates a captive audience and instant shoppers to enhance the shopping center. Living near transportation and shopping is very important to those individuals looking for housing opportunities. The new residents will likely bring much-needed revenue to the city and to keep Daly City financially healthy as well. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Lex.
Good evening, Mayor Manalo, members of the City Council. I'd like to compliment the Daly City Planning Department for its collaborative work with Kimco to bring this thoughtfully designed project before the City Council, and to thank Kimco for proposing the project to dress up the Westlake Shopping Center and provide new housing options that modernize an area not addressed in the last renovation 10 years ago. And while I'm thanking Kimco, I'd like to thank them for becoming a sponsor for Crazy About Cars in Polna. The Daly City Libraries and DCPLA really appreciate that. This project will improve pedestrian and vehicular traffic circulation and parking, as you've heard, both of which are issues for anyone shopping at Trader Joe's, Ross, or other stores in the area. This project will bring new investment, energy, creativity, excitement, and vision to Daly City. And that's what we need at this difficult time. I urge the council to approve this proposed mixed-use plan amendment.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jane Chamber?
Hi, Jane.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I was asked to read a letter on behalf of Denise A. Kelly, who is a resident in the immediate vicinity of the shopping center. Dear Honorable Daly City Council members, I would like to express my support of the proposed project at Westlake Shopping Center. With the decline in brick and mortar retail shopping, we need to ensure that we continue to have revenue to support our needs. Making good development decisions, such as this project, will ensure a continued flow of revenue for the citizens of Daly City. In addition, reasonably priced housing near good transportation is a benefit to our environment and reduces the housing shortage. The project will also help ease the traffic congestion in and around the shopping center with better access in and out on Park Plaza. Please approve this project. Sincerely, Denise Kelly.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bob McLennan?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, I'm Bob, crazy about cars, McLennan. I'm here to throw in my support. I've been in and I'm representing Planet Fitness. I've been in the business here in Daly City since 1979. My family moved to Daly City in 1960, and I graduated from Westmore, so I'm a local boy here. That I can't believe it's 2018, and when I used to go to Westlake Shopping Center and go to King Norman Toys, that I'd be here, showing my support for the existing project. Being around town, you kind of make your decisions by your gut, and I was asked to attend a couple meetings with the Kimco group. And my gut's telling me that they've really got their act together. I think that they care. I think that they've got their challenges with the little guys, and I appreciate you guys, sticking up for them and doing what you can. It's a tough deal. We've got to rejuvenate, but we also need to take care of our own. So, from that standpoint, I think it's a good move, and the best of luck to everybody. So, on another note, as Ray said tonight, sometimes we don't say our thank yous like we should. Michael and Judith, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You guys have put your heart and soul into this, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Lynn Shabunka?
Go, Lynn, go.
I moved here in 1957 and watched Westlake grow up, so. But I am here tonight to read a letter on behalf of Susan Brissenden Smith. I have to say, though, I echo what everybody is saying tonight. I do look out for the little guy, but I hope that we change in a good way. So this is from Susan to the Honorable Jessalyn Manalo, Mayor and council members. Read the Kimco Realty proposal. Dear Mayor and Council, I write in support of the proposal by Kimco Realty to demolish one section of the Westlake Shopping Center and build a mixed residential retail component. As a nearby resident and almost daily user of the center, I can appreciate the need for such a change, especially with the critical need for more housing stock in the Bay Area. I have attended a forum where this project was discussed and heard Mr. Strauss detail all the changes that would take place, the timeline, and the efforts they are making to accommodate current tenants. Several questions were raised regarding the traffic flow, parking for the tenants, the future of the little independent stores, etc., and I believe they were addressed.
I believe the changes to the center will benefit this and surrounding communities. There is a saying, if you don't change, you die. This is especially true of today's shopping centers, and I urge a yes vote on this project. Sincerely, Susan Brissenden Smith, Daly City.
Thank you very much.
And thank you both for your service. I keep thanking you for yours.
Ms. Gabriella Maxman?
Hi, Mayor Manalo, Vice Mayor Buenaventura, everyone else, staff. I'd like to echo what everyone has said about this project. It's really amazing to see what the future of Daly City can look like. It makes me really excited to be raising my family here, knowing I'm at Westlake multiple times a week, and it made me very emotional looking at those plans, and I can see how Kimco and Mr. Strauss put so much effort into really thinking about our community and what we can look like in the future. At the same time, I want to acknowledge the fact that we have businesses at Westlake that have been there for a really long time that are going to be impacted and that may not necessarily fit into the vision of what the shopping center would look like. And I know in the past, Mr. Benaventura had helped get Westlake Cafe to where the movie theater is, and I hope that staff and the city council can really work with these businesses to see if there's other areas of our community that they can help positively impact. We were talking about at some point earlier in the year, a medical office building near 88 Hillside, very close to transportation. If that happens, maybe some of these people can move there. And also perhaps as part of the $25 for housing, perhaps there could be a fund set up to help hold over some of these businesses as they figure out what they're going to be doing next. Finally, while I know you're thinking about an ordinance, please don't lose sight of what $3.6 million can do for housing in our community. We should do everything that we can to make sure that that money comes to Daly City. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Tom Nurse.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, I address you again tonight in support of this project. Everything that has been said before in favor of it, I would also echo. I would also say that I shopped at King Norman's with Bob McClellan as a 9-year-old, and so I've seen this shopping center grow for the last 40, 50 years as well. And our community at this point needs this as a shot in the arm. It's good for the neighborhoods, it is good for retail, it is good all the ways around, and it's something that's been vetted to the community very well by the developers, and clearly staff has studied it very carefully and has made very, very good reports to you as city council members. And so many questions have been already asked and answered. And so I would recommend that we go forward with it. It's good all the ways around, and obviously the city can definitely use the revenues at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Pamela DiGiovanni.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I just want to make sure that it's transparent with the public that I've been asked several questions. Tonight I'm answering this question as the chair of the Planning Commission to let people know that I had to recuse myself from this project when it was before planning because I live at Westlake Apartments. So in clarification for people knowing that on the vote or anything else or any other questions, that I did legally recuse myself in answering because I live within the percentage of the feet of the project. So as chair of planning, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Stephanie Ballon.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Manalo, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. I come here as a community member. I was raised here last 40 years in Daly City, so I've seen how Westlake Shopping Center evolved when there was Foxy 17 and all those shops, so very familiar. But I come to you not necessarily to be resistant to change because I see the potential of growth and opportunity with this project. And at the same time, I'm curious about the stakeholder process and the buy-in from the rest of the community because I actually just found out about this maybe like 2 weeks ago. So I'm wondering, is there an explicit community-informed decision about what this could look like, or if there's anything, in this process that we can offer to folks who don't have access. I stand here with privilege because some folks can't make it to these late night city council public hearings. So I'm wondering what is happening to offer that opportunity for other folks who may not have a voice. So, and I also want to underscore, the affordable housing, seeing it on the latter end of like the list of recommendations. I'm hoping, and I'm pleading that you highlight that as something as a priority for our community. We've seen in other communities like Oakland and San Francisco what's happening with folks being pushed out. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a explicit explanation on what's going to happen with that plan. So I guess, and I've been hearing about impact and enhancement. So I'm just, again, curious how the community defines impact and enhancement and how we can be more inclusive of community voice. So,
thank you very much.
Could I just make a comment here? I want to give her some information. If you want to become more involved and more informed, you can contact the city clerk's office and ask to be emailed the agendas of the Planning Commission and the agendas of the City Council. And that will list projects that you might be interested in speaking on. And you can share that with others, that information. Thanks for letting me do that.
Asuncion Balon.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm a resident of Westlake Shopping Center, Westlake, and about 2 blocks from the shopping center. And I do have some concerns about parking and traffic congestion. As was mentioned by Mr. Sylvester, Belmar and Park Plaza Drive is a bad place, to take when you go to Park Plaza or the shopping center. You can hardly make a left turn or left turn or right turn to go to the shopping center. Sometimes we walk to the shopping center rather than drive because the traffic is so bad, and we can't find any parking spaces. The other thing that was not, mentioned was that, although traffic has been really bad on John Daly, maybe, like the consultant really didn't do a proper job looking into this, but there have been a lot of times that there's traffic, especially, like on the weekends and, in the holidays. And let me just say something about, like the project that you are doing. You said that you are building 179 apartment buildings, and the average household would at least have 2 cars, maybe average, which would be, like you're talking about 358 spaces. Now you promised to build 260 parking spaces, so you still need 98 parking spaces. Now you also said that you're taking 60 surface parking to build whatever you're building. Now the problem is, whoever needs a parking space, from the shopping center will need to go, like north, which is 2 blocks from where we live. And already, like the apartment building tenants are taking our spaces. Like we hardly have any spaces left for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Richard Drury.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Richard Drury, and I'm representing the Laborers International Union of North America, LIUNA Local 261. I'd like to emphasize, one, we don't oppose the project. We support building housing in good places. It seems like a good location, but we do believe that the wrong form of CEQA review was conducted and that this project requires an environmental impact report because it has significant environmental impacts that have yet to be mitigated. In particular, we submitted an expert report from soil, water, and air pollution expert SWAPE, a consulting firm who did a health risk assessment on the project. And quite to my surprise, largely because of the traffic generated and also the loading dock, which is only 25 meters from the nearest homes, The cancer risk generated by the diesel emissions from this project is almost 1,000 in a million, 996 in a million. To put that in perspective, the CEQA significance threshold is 10 in a million. So we're 100 times above the CEQA significance threshold for air pollution impacts. CEQA would analyze those impacts and require mitigation. Also, our traffic engineer, Dan Smith, who has over 40 years of experience, calculated that the project will actually increase traffic impacts and that the traffic analysis was erroneous because it assumes that the existing medical offices are fully occupied when in fact there's a large amount of vacancy in those buildings. As a result, the traffic impacts of the project will increase traffic and decrease level of service below LOS F. Now, the consultant said, well, it won't decrease service from E to F or D to E, but it's going from F to sub F. It doesn't get worse than F. So it's a little misleading to say it doesn't change the level of service. It's true, it's already F at certain times of day. It's going to get worse than it is now. That's a significant impact when the traffic is already so bad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everyone that had a public comment. And at this point, I'd like to share some of my thoughts.
It doesn't make sense.
Yes, let's do that first. Do you have a... Thank you. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So one thing that was mentioned prior, and I know the Vice Mayor mentioned this at the last hearing, was about the small businesses. And I know the project applicant had stated about 70% of the businesses have or have been talked to. But today I heard from businesses that don't know what's going on, or they are still waiting to see whether or not they'll have a place. And that's something important. I do say that the development plan, I believe in mixed-use projects, most especially around areas of transit, right? And that's where we're at in Westlake. And also how the proximity of Samtrans, as well as BART, and looking at ways to increase more housing in the city and the region, right? And that's extremely important. But hearing that it seems like not an extensive outreach has been done. These are businesses on the periphery, right where they will be impacted, is still something that needs to happen. I was hoping by this time, with what Vice Mayor had requested, that all the business would be, they're on the front lines of where the development's going to happen. It's so important to work with our neighborhood, our other community organizations, but the businesses are going to be the ones that are number one affected with this development. So that's my one comment. Also, around affordable housing, I look at this development, and I'm not saying it's not the right fit. I just think that there are some pieces of the development that are important. And as mentioned earlier, around the need for more housing, it's not necessarily only housing in general, but having more affordable housing. And seeing housing on site is crucial because, you are going to get both market rate housing, and you're going to get also, if this plan looks at it. I mentioned at the last hearing around, we know it's not mandated because, the laws don't allow or require you to have on-site. But I did mention, is there any way for you to look at any on-site kind of plan? And to this date, I still see it as an in lieu fee. When I hear individuals and families trying to remain in our community, these, whether it's 12 or 15%, whether it'll be 20 units or 15, these type of units on site is extremely, it's something that people gravitate and need, right? Especially around what we've seen, and that's why in the state legislature, they're saying we need to build more. I'm not saying that this project isn't the right fit. I think there's pieces of it that still need to be worked on in order for me to move it forward. And this is not something that was mentioned just now. I was hoping to see that there would be some sort of earnest try from the developer on trying to see how could he see some on-site. That was what I had mentioned last time at the last hearing, and I know what you have right now is an in lieu fee. I understand that it's not a requirement, but I did mention, is there any way to look through your pro forma, see any ways that there could be possibly a mix? And I don't see that now. But I do see the length of work that has been done in this development. I see how, aesthetically it's gonna, bring value to, an area that needs some work if, it was built a while ago, and then also providing a way for folks to have more housing. But also, as mentioned, I'd like to know, as far as the outreach, someone mentioned how will other people know? Were there residents that were reached out to? I know we talked about businesses, but the adjacent residents living in the area, it seems like I hear from residents from the area that may have not known about it. But I think that's something maybe that we could work on or talk about, ways to see how there could be this real tangible affordable housing units below market rate on site. And even though there isn't an ordinance now, I think that you've mentioned that you're amenable to be doing it, but it's on site. But for me, I'd like to see a way that we can work together to see what is it on your end when you look at the plan as far as what's feasible. And it's really around the concern around having community members be able to live in the beautiful place that Councilmember Sylvester had mentioned. Because at market rate, there's going to be only some folks that'll be able to afford those units. And we're trying to help retain and give opportunities to variety community members. So, do you like to respond? Okay.
I'll be brief this time, I promise.
Okay.
I did want to come. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for for your comments. With respect to the affordable housing, we are open to it. It's just it's asking a lot to have us pay the fee of $25 per square foot and do the units. I certainly understand.
Oh, I wasn't asking for the in lieu fee. What about it's not paying the in lieu fee? It was looking at, even though we didn't have the ordinance, it was seeing if there was any feasibility on your end to have any units on site. That's what I was asking. And it wasn't around, and at this point, we are going to be working on an ordinance. I think it's extremely important, especially capturing this opportunity to ensure that there is a breadth of certain income levels that would be able to avail of these opportunities. I feel that it is a great location. I feel that there needs to be housing there. But at this point, I also believe that when you build those market rate units, at the same time providing units on site is going to be beneficial to our community.
And thank you for that. And I agree. I was just pointing out that right now, we have to pay the fee regardless, because the ordinance, in my understanding, would have to be changed in order to allow us to do the inclusionary unit. So I certainly appreciate that, and we're open to it, and we want to embrace the diversity of Daly City and all income levels, but that's why I was just saying that we're happy to look at it when the ordinance changes. So I didn't mean any disrespect by that.
No, I don't see any disrespect. I see our planning director, she has a comment.
I will yield the floor.
Actually, yes, that's correct that the current ordinance mandates the payment of fees. However, there is a section in the affordable housing ordinance that allows alternative plans to be submitted. And so under that section of the ordinance, an alternative plan could be submitted that we could review to determine it being basically something equivalent to what the fee would capture.
And are you saying in the ordinance as it states now?
As it is now, we allow for developers to submit alternative proposals.
So they can submit an alternative.
They could submit an affordable housing plan that would either be a hybrid of providing units and a portion of the fee, or an amount of units in lieu of paying, basically providing units in lieu of paying the impact fee.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification.
I have a question for you. Are you done? You let me go?
Councilmember Christensen, please.
So where we are now, if we vote to move forward with this, all of the affordable housing details are worked out at a later time. The negotiation continues, right?
Well,
depending on, I mean, if there's a new ordinance, then there is, there has to be an affordable housing plan. They're proposing the $25.
Right, because that's mandated by the ordinance.
Right.
We allow an affordable housing plan, which would be something different than what the ordinance requires. We typically require that prior to deeming an application complete. I don't know if we would have the leeway to maybe make a condition of approval that would suggest the provision of units and the submittal of an affordable housing fee, or affordable housing plan that would provide a certain amount of units, or a hybrid where it's a certain amount of units and a portion of the fee.
And so the final affordability plan has to be in effect prior to the pulling of permits.
Well, so providing affordable units is a two-step process. So we require an affordable housing plan to deem a development application complete.
Right.
So then that goes through the entitlement process. And then prior to building permit, we require an affordable housing agreement. And that's very specific to how the units are marketed and how they will, rent the units and the covenants.
The whole process. And will the stuff on the inside be the same and the same? I mean, all those kind of details that we've seen before. Exactly.
How they select the households,
size,
the incomes, whatnot. So it would be a little bit outside the box to require the affordable housing plan after project approval, but this is a plan development amendment, so we could probably look at providing a condition of approval that requires an affordable housing plan.
And if we were to do a condition of approval, when would that stipulation, is it time frame?
It would be at the pleasure of the city council of what sort of milestone they would want to see. I mean, we want the agreement prior to building permit, so you would want the affordable housing plan in advance of that as well.
So the housing committee, it's yourself, right, Mayor?
It's not only myself, it's myself and Councilmember Sylvester.
And Sylvester, yes. So you guys have some work maybe to do here. I know you've been doing good work.
Just a point of clarification. Sure. So the current affordable housing ordinance allows for an affordable housing plan to be submitted, really is at the discretion of the developer. However, given that we are in the process of developing a new ordinance, which may or may not include that aspect of it, I don't know necessarily if a condition of approval would grandfather them into having a condition of approval to require them to have an affordable housing plan. Really, it's for them to consider submitting it because that is what the current ordinance requires them to do, if they want to. And it is a little bit outside the box because usually we would have these plans prior to coming to the council, and that would be already approved if the proposal from the developer was that they wanted to submit a hybrid or something to the effect moving forward.
Got it,
So
and that would be the condition of approval.
the condition would be for them to consider submitting an affordable housing plan.
That then is
That's what it
negotiated
states
with
right
the
now.
planning
Right, the way it states right now, it is the option of the developer to submit that for consideration, and we usually would have that submitted prior to. However, you are also in the process of developing an affordable housing plan, which may or may not have those conditions, so it's sort of, you may not have it in time because you may have new affordable housing plan apply to their project prior to pulling the building permit. Right. There is some time. It's just how you want to craft moving forward, how this project's going to proceed.
I see. So I understand. So basically, in the ordinance, it basically says they can provide an alternate plan, although there isn't one right now because they're paying the in lieu fee, but that's what the ordinance states. Okay. Got it. I think, what I was trying to see is whether or not at this juncture, we would be able to ask to see if they could look at an alternative plan with seeing the feasibility of on-site. But although it is after the fact, it's a little, it's not in kind of the same. But the other question I have is about my first question about the small businesses and the outreach to all the small businesses that were kind of on the ground plane or in that building, and because and where that's at.
Right. I think we've done a good job in working with and approaching and keeping up to date most of the businesses. We may not be able to accommodate every single tenant, and we certainly have great respect for the tenants, and we need to do apparently a better job in communicating in terms of the timing, but I'm not sure that every single tenant will fit in the shopping center. I certainly appreciate our friend from the cigarette store and from Structure Hair coming out tonight. I certainly apologize if we haven't done as well as maybe we could have, but we are looking constantly at every single one of these tenants and doing our best to accommodate absolutely as many as possible. Like I said, we don't anticipate trying to empty these buildings out until we've relocated most of these tenants, which will be a year plus from now. So we still have time to help them, but not every tenant. There just isn't enough room for us to accommodate everyone. But we're happy to meet with anybody and everybody and brainstorm and redouble our efforts. But we're doing our best, and we're able to accommodate most of them. And I know that's of little consolation to maybe a tenant that may not have a space going forward. But all I can say is that we're doing our best, and we certainly appreciate that everybody the position, the awkward position. Where just because of the length of this process, and we've been planning to try to do something like this project for some time, that's why when leases have turned over, we haven't raced to extend and sign a whole lengthy new terms. And I totally realize that puts some tenants in a tough spot, and all I can say is that we just need to do a better job and try to work with them as best we can. But not everybody will be able to be accommodated.
There's two of your tenants here. I hope that you're able to connect with them because and figure out a way to support the smaller businesses. It's something that they've been businesses here for a very long time.
Right.
And I think it was mentioned by also, it's a hard situation, but also Mr. McLennan mentioned, like, there are long-term businesses.
Right.
And they've been here for a while. So I hope that there is a way that you can communicate and figure out ways to help retain them in our community.
Great.
So it's important.
Thank you very much.
Got a comment I'd like to make.
Okay. Councilmember Sylvester.
You know, Daly City is in a structural deficit at this time. What that means is we're spending more than what we're bringing in. We have to find ways to increase our retail, bring better taxes and more taxes to the city. And based upon what I've heard tonight, this project is going to generate close to $327,000 to the city. I've listened to basically all sides, and I received some additional information tonight that I didn't know. What was very, very appealing to me is the term NIMBYism, not in my backyard, where I heard from a particular resident who was saying, yes, YIMBYism, yes, in my backyard. Okay, that really meant a lot to me. But what I also gathered is our community and the displacement aspect of folks that have really made our community all these years what it is today. The amount of a few dollars to push someone out does not bode well with me. I think enough has not been done for tenant outreach. Maybe offering resources as to where they can go or what they can do. We've been through this before. The environmental impact concerns that I did not know about, which I heard this evening, the inclusionary policy to which we believe housing is of utmost importance to our city. But yet we are acting on something, we're putting the cart before the horse. Why don't we have something, inclusionary housing policy, which we're working on at this time? So why does this matter have to go today? And the last issue I wanted to bring up, hearing from someone from the community, was to pedestrian safety. We talk about pedestrian safety while you're inside, but what about getting to? And I'm very familiar with Belmar Street because it's like a racetrack, and it is hard to cross that street. Not enough was done, and I feel very, very uncomfortable. I said it earlier, I would like to live there, but I'm not going to live there on the backs of our community unless I know they have been given an opportunity to voice their concerns, and part of that I've heard this evening. So what I'm saying is I don't see a rush till we can get an inclusionary housing policy established, until we can find out more about traffic and pedestrian safety, especially in the outer lying streets coming towards the mall. And what else did I mention? Pedestrian safety, tenant outreach, and environmental concerns. So it's just my thought. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Sylvester, for your comments. Are there any other comments on the floor?
Yeah, so I think, when this project first came about, or at least we got a really hard look, I'm sorry. When this project came about in December last year, I was clearly one of the biggest skeptics of this going up at Westlake. And I had voiced my concerns about, and in particular, the small businesses. And I think I was direct and said, that places like Tani's, the Taylor, Nations, I mean, it was all there for us. And in particular, I was sensitive, as my record shows, with respect to places like the Westlake Coffee Shop, because that's not the kind of displacement I want to see happen to our small businesses and our community. And I said at the time that it was clear to me that I was skeptical. And I said at the time that despite my skepticism, that I would keep an open mind. And I'm listening tonight to a very well thought out discussion amongst the council here, in particular with the mayor and the council member Sylvester. And I share those valid points, especially the housing, the affordable housing, and the small business displacement. Let me turn to the small business displacement. From what I have seen, it appears to me there has been a genuine hard effort to try to get the businesses back. I've seen that in my talking to people, in what I've seen with respect to the outreach. And it's an honest, earnest effort to try to bring them back. And I recognize we do not live in a perfect world where we can keep every single business as much as we want to. Change and progress results in different outcomes, and it's never a perfect outcome. And it appears to me that Kimco has tried, and not only have they tried, but they are open to trying more. And that's where I say that we shouldn't let a definitive answer lead us into a path of stagnation and slowing down of progress and growth. And I think that based on what they have done thus far, they will continue in their efforts to reach out to the community, to the small businesses, because I don't believe they're done. And not only that, I think they are hearing us loud and clear that that is a priority for us to keep our small businesses. Mind you, I'm the one who raised all kinds of hell when they got rid of Westlake Coffee Shop. And I think they understood that, and that's brought them to a position where they have started to talk to people, talk to the businesses in an effort to try to save them. And then with respect to the affordable housing component, that's still not done. And I don't think necessarily have to have a final agreement on what that housing element will look like, on what the affordable housing. But what is clear is we are united in the direction that we want affordable housing. Okay? I think that the process is still going to develop with the ordinance we're about to implement, with the rules and parameters we're about to give direction on. And knowing that that's what we want, I think it will be clear that we will not accept anything that doesn't involve some kind of affordable housing component. So I don't think we should slow this down. I do think that we should move this forward and continue to work out the things that are important to us, including our businesses, our small businesses, and the affordable housing component. I don't think it's necessary that we put a stop or postpone progress. And I think you have an organization here that has reached out from the small business community to the residences to even the sanitation company that will provide for the garbage. So that tells me a lot, and I would like to see movement and not cause us to slow something like this, which is going to be huge for Daly City. It's a wonderful project. It looks great, and there's been a lot of thought put into it. And this is the kind of thing I think will put Daly City on the map. And I think people are going to want to live there. And the way we have deliberated and discussed this shows that we do care about our small businesses and affordable housing. So I'd like to see this move forward. I think we should give them a chance, and if we want to put the brakes on it, we can do it later. And we can insist on certain things. And I'm just more confident that we can get something done in this project.
Thank you for your comments, Vice Mayor. Really appreciate it. So at this point, can you explain what the approvals are specifically, either Rose? Because it was mentioned earlier, we can approve this, but there can be things that can be changed down the line. I need the clarification on that.
Okay, so the approvals before the council tonight is the approval of the entire project, and you would actually have an amendment to the existing PD zoning, which would be by ordinance. With respect, what I'm assuming is the affordable housing component, you would essentially be approving the project with the current affordable housing requirements. However, in the event that you were to have a new ordinance to amend the existing affordable housing ordinance, it would apply to this project up until the time of pulling of the building permit.
Up until the time of
Right,
the building permit.
right. Assuming that, I mean, so essentially, you know, we're looking at an ordinance essentially potentially in the next 3 months. That's what we're looking at. We do have a housing committee inside. So, I mean, be mindful, as planning director had pointed out, is the current law does allow for the building of affordable units on site, which originally was not the case. However, the law does also require to have alternatives to that requirement, which may or may not include certain aspects depending on how the housing committee, it may have fees, it may have increased fees. Those are alternatives that are built into the ordinance. Not to say I don't know how that project would definitely look like, but I just wanted the council also to be reminded that as you develop your ordinance, those alternatives have to be factored into the project as well. So for tonight, you will be, if the approvals were in place, you would be approving the environmental assessment that has been done, and also the project and the ordinance.
So this is approval of the project to be entitled.
That's correct.
This evening.
So
if anything, there wouldn't be an ability to change anything once we decide. I just need to understand.
That's correct, yes. Okay. The only aspect that could be changed would be the affordable housing component based on the ordinance that is developed by the council.
Okay, so I do want to say that, as mentioned earlier, I think it's really important, the iteration is how you continue to work with the small businesses, especially the ones that voiced their concerns today, is really important. I mean, I know you've worked extremely hard to reach out to large, small businesses, nonprofits. It's great, and I think that's what we want out of a community partner, and that is what you've done. So thank you for that. I do say the project, you know, as mentioned, I think it's the right place. There's transit, and really providing parking, subterranean level is important. But I do want to say that I think that in order to approve it, that there's a condition of approval around having affordable housing plan alternative. Meaning I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the project with a condition of providing an affordable housing plan that shows an on-site portion of it. Can we do that, Mr. City Attorney? Because if we're approving the entitlement now, going back is gonna be too.
Well, except you just said that any new ordinance that you guys would propose on the housing committee that got passed would apply.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's the part that can change even if we vote as it is tonight.
So is
I
that
just wanna
already
make sure
built
that
into
that's
the
correct.
conditions? I'm deferring to the planning director because I did see
The
that.
condition related to affordable housing is condition number 5. The first statement, though, does say shall pay an affordable housing impact fee, so we may want to change the language there to maybe just address that this project would be subject to the ordinance in time of pulling a building permit, rather than saying they shall pay the fee, because that's
Yes, because
confusing.
that's why that's why it's saying that this is their plan now.
Right.
So, okay.
Yes. With that change, that makes more sense than having them submit an affordable housing plan, which may or may not apply here. So.
Which may not meet the requirements of the new ordinance.
That's correct. So we can do that with that change.
And also, so be able to make that change, and then also would be able to, if the applicant is willing to add a way to show kind of what your outreach mechanism is to the small businesses. I know sometimes that's privy information, but understanding kind of, that's an important piece to provide the council with a report.
Well, what if, Madam Mayor, may I address the council?
Sure.
What if we had agreed to work with staff on on the relocation plan? We've already submitted a relocation plan as part of this application. We can, we can work with staff on, on that further. I don't know if that's a possibility, but we really have made, every effort to work with as many as we can. Obviously, we can do better, and we want to circle back, and so we certainly appreciate the sentiment here.
And so some of those negotiations are obviously confidential.
Right.
And have to be, because it's a private business, yes, yes.
Well, the concern I have
That's
is.
why working with staff is fine, as long as we don't need to be airing it out here.
Councilmember Sylvester?
Working with staff sounds good, but we need assurances that not only do you work with staff, but you work with your tenants. You talk to them. That's all I'm saying. That's all we're asking. Talk to the tenants as well. You don't have to give us the details as to what happened, whether you tried to do the best that you could for the tenants and, at least reach out to them. We don't have to know what the results, but that they have a voice, that you talk to them.
If I may, through the chair, perhaps a condition of approval to include that the developer submit a relocation plan that is reviewed and submitted to city staff.
Sure, for each of the businesses.
All right.
Right?
That would include the businesses.
All right. Madam Mayor, there was another issue that we kind of overlooked, and that's the environmental about cancer risks. Can we?
Yeah.
It's
Thank you for
Councilmember
bringing that
Sylvester
up.
at the moment.
Right. Can we condition this?
Thank you for bringing that up, because I'm in this.
So, through the mayor, the city's environmental consultant is actually here and can maybe shed some light on that topic.
So what we have here is dueling experts.
So,
So it looks like it.
So,
We
you have
recommend
the
you take.
floor.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Coney Danielson. I'm with David J. Powers Associates, environmental consulting firm, and we assist the city with the review of the project under the California Environmental Quality Act. And so you heard testimony tonight, and comments were received by the city arguing that the project would have significant air quality impacts, and also that there were inappropriate assumptions made about the traffic that we generated. So again, the argument is that the city should have prepared an environmental impact report, which is a document that has a longer review period, and it includes the consideration of project alternatives. The city did an initial study, mitigated negative declaration, where we found that there were no significant unavoidable impacts. All impacts could be mitigated to a less than significant level. So the specific contentions were that a health risk assessment should have been prepared for the project. There was. We did evaluate the construction of the project. So typically, when construction occurs, it will produce both dust and toxic fumes. So diesel that gets emitted by diesel engines, that's carcinogenic, so it causes cancer. So we account for that, and in this case, the project will be excavating a 2-level deep parking garage. That's a lot of activity. They'll be demolishing existing buildings. That's a lot of activity. And then constructing a 170,000 some square foot structure. So all of that is activity that will produce diesel emissions. And so we've modeled that. And not surprisingly, we found that that would produce elevated levels of cancer risk during construction. That's a common conclusion for a project of this size in this location near existing residents. So that's not unusual. And using diesel equipment that's been certified either by the EPA or the State Air Resources Board, that risk can be reduced to a level that's less than significant. That's a very common thing to do. It's not out of the ordinary. And so we feel very comfortable in the conclusion that the construction of the project can be mitigated. That's why we're suggesting it doesn't require an environmental impact report. The contention that was made about 1,000 cases per million, which is a number that's just fantastic. I mean, it's not believable, frankly, is that the project, once it's built, so in operation, once the building is there, once the businesses are occupied and attracting their customers, once the residences are in the structure and commuting to and from and doing their other daily trips, that somehow that activity is going to produce 1,000 cases per million of increased cancer risk. And that's just not a believable number. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District is the regional agency that helps cities evaluate air quality. And the types of land uses that typically during their operation generate large amounts of cancer are things like rail yards, so diesel locomotives, shipyards, diesel-powered ships, truck distribution centers, again, diesel trucks, large industrial facilities, not things like a housing project or a commercial center. Those typically have relatively infrequent commercial truck deliveries, medium-sized trucks, or in the case of a shopping center, you might have larger trucks. But again, they're not at the level of a rail yard or a shipyard or a truck distribution center. So, and in this case, actually, we look at what's the existing condition. So there is a shopping center there. It is receiving deliveries of trucks every day. There are passenger vehicles every day. And so there already are sources of air quality emissions associated with the cars that are coming to and from and the trucks that are coming to and from. And here we're really talking about the trucks because passenger vehicles don't produce cancerous diesel particulate matter. It's really talking about diesel trucks. And so the existing businesses do have truck deliveries. The new commercial square footage will have truck deliveries, and they're about equal. We actually think they're going to be slightly less under the project, but in any case, they're about equal. So there's really no reason to believe that this project would produce the really, I'd say, fantastic numbers that have been suggested. They're based upon erroneous assumptions. They're based upon flawed methodology. They're not in compliance with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District guidance. So we just don't think that they're credible, frankly. We have evaluated this project according to the methodology established by the Air District, and after having worked on housing and commercial projects for the last 20 years in the Bay Area, we've never found a project to have these levels of diesel particulate emissions that wasn't, again, a rail yard, a shipyard, or a truck distribution center. A housing and a commercial project just wouldn't produce this level of cancer risk. There were also arguments made about the traffic baseline, that the traffic report was making an assumption that all of the spaces were occupied and that in reality the medical office is not fully occupied, and it sounds like some of the other tenant spaces are also not fully occupied. First of all, the trip generation rates that are used, those are based upon surveys of businesses and other commercial centers, and those are not always occupied either. There's already some amount of vacancy built into the rates that we use. Whether it's as high as the vacancy rate that's experienced here may not be the case, but the city would be justified in assuming that the center were fully occupied as its baseline for the purposes of the trips that are already associated with the project. Because if this project doesn't proceed, if you don't allow the site to redevelop and it stays in its current configuration, it's reasonable to assume that the property owner is going to re-tenant those spaces. So if you do nothing, if you don't approve this project, and the center remains as is, those spaces have been in the past fully occupied, and it's reasonable to assume that they will be. So therefore, your use of a full occupancy baseline is justified, and it's something that the CEQA case law says is subject to the discretion of the lead agency. So you're not subject to the fair argument here, even though they might argue that using a baseline of only partial occupancy will show traffic impacts. That's not the question. Here you have the basis to choose a full occupancy baseline because there's nothing physically wrong with this shopping center. The project is just the developers proposing to do something different, so therefore they're not fully tenanted in the space. So for all of those reasons, we don't believe that there's any record in there's any substantial evidence in the record of a fair argument in support of a significant impact. We don't believe an EIR is required for this project. All the impacts can be mitigated, and for that reason, we believe a mitigated negative declaration is the appropriate SEQA document.
I have a question. Can you tell us some cities that you have also worked for?
Throughout the nine-county area. San Jose, Hayward, Napa, Santa Rosa, Morgan Hill, Gilroy, Redwood City, Sunnyvale, Mountain View, you name it.
Okay, so you're the go-to guy for a lot of cities.
Throughout the Bay Area, yes.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for the consultant?
Not for the consultant, but on
For
another
staff?
matter.
Okay, on another matter. When you mentioned it was just a negative declaration.
Mitigated declaration,
Yeah, so what was, with that, was there anything that the project needed to do? What was the mitigation measures?
So we're making a finding that
They don't need to?
there are some significant effects of this
Okay,
project,
so-
but that they can be mitigated. So
Yeah, what are
the
the-
negative declaration means there aren't significant effects. In this case, we're saying because mitigation's been applied. So for like the construction, air quality,
Yeah,
the
so what
toxic.
are the mitigation?
Well, for air quality, as we mentioned, the equipment that they use during construction will have to be clean rated. It'll have to be the latest, cleanest equipment that's been certified by the EPA or the State Air Resources Board. So during construction, they'll have to use certified equipment. For biology, we said that there are some trees in the vicinity, or there might even be some birds that nest within the buildings, right? So during the nesting season, they need to do surveys to make sure that nests aren't destroyed. That's a fairly common thing. Cultural resources, there we're saying that during construction, again, when they're excavating the basement, they could encounter some remains or Native American resources or paleontological resources. We don't expect that to happen, but it's possible.
Oh, come on, I want a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
So there are mitigations, but again, it's a fairly common thing when you disturb soil that
Yeah.
you have to incorporate those.
Okay.
Hazards and hazardous materials, there was a former dry cleaner on the property. That property did undergo years of oversight by the county, but now that it's being proposed for residential occupancy rather than commercial, the county will need to certify that it's clean to a residential standard.
Okay.
And that's pretty common.
And that's gonna be
Yeah,
done.
and hydrology and water quality, typical things, again, during construction, if it's raining, you need to make sure that you're not pushing a bunch of sediment into the storm drain system. Or in this case, there's the possibility that when they're excavating the deep basement, they might encounter some perched groundwater, and that would be an opportunity to contaminate the groundwater table, so they'll have to mitigate for that. And then noise and vibration, just typical restrictions on construction activity so that residents and businesses around the site aren't disturbed. So there will be restrictions on the days of the week and the hours of the day.
So what are those times?
For construction?
Yes.
I believe it's 8 to 5:30,
Right.
Monday through Friday. Yeah.
Attachment L actually provides all of the mitigation measures that are associated with the project.
Okay, but what, I'm sorry?
Oh, I said attachment L to
Okay.
the staff report actually
But what is it?
identifies.
So the public will know and the residents will know?
Well, you're wondering about the construction hours?
Yes,
I
so
believe
that-
they're 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
8 to 5? Okay.
And so you have an ordinance that dictates that, yeah.
Right, the building official essentially enforces that.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Sylvester?
All right, and my other recommendation about planning for pedestrian safety on the peripherals of the mall, not within the shopping center, but on the peripherals. Can we do anything about that? And the signs?
Anything we require of this project has to have a nexus that's caused by the project. In terms of improving some pedestrian
I
at the
see.
periphery, it's,
All right. So something has to happen.
The project's got to
Maybe
cause an
somebody gets
impact for
run
us to
over or
require them to.
Something like that before.
Well, and it might just be, like you said, it's bad now. So maybe this is something that our traffic division needs to look at on behalf of the city, not on behalf of the project.
And that being said, there have been pedestrian improvements that have gone in the last 10 years.
That have made it better.
Right.
But
The flashing
It's a
light.
long
The
way
flashing
from
lights
perfect.
are a good example. I mean, the
Yeah.
city, receives additional revenue from, development project like this, and, it opens opportunities for more.
Okay, so thank you. Is that good? Okay. So at this point, there is a motion on the floor to approve the project with the conditions mentioned, the changes with the affordable housing. Can you repeat that?
Sure.
So, and then also ensuring that there is a relocation plan.
So I can, hopefully, through the chair. My understanding is there's a potential motion on the floor that a condition of approval include, and I'm paraphrasing, that the applicant shall comply with the affordable housing ordinance, the current affordable housing ordinance at the time of building permit issuance. And we'll craft it to incorporate that. And with respect to relocation, there has been a relocation plan that was submitted, and I would suggest that the condition of approval include a resubmittal of a relocation plan to include some of the concerns that was addressed at the council, and resubmit that to the planning division as a condition of approval.
Okay.
And I believe that might be it, unless I'm missing some other changes from the council.
Seeing none, is there anything, okay. Is there, okay, there's a second by
So
Vice Mayor.
at this point, because this is an ordinance change on the plan development, I think the sequencing would be for a motion for the city attorney to read by title only prior to issuing a motion, entertaining a motion to approve the project with those potential changes.
Okay, so we have to motion for you to read the title only and then
And
add
then-
the.
right.
Okay, so we have a motion for the city attorney to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Voice vote.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So this is an ordinance of the City of Daly City regarding planning development standards, plan development zone PD 60A regarding the Westlake Shopping Center. We'd also entertain a motion for the council to introduce the ordinance.
Okay, I motion to approve the project with the following amendments. Ensuring that the affordable housing, what was the exact word?
Okay, so that the applicant shall comply with the current affordable housing ordinance at the time of building permit issuance.
With the caveat that if we change the ordinance.
That's correct, yes. There will be language to the effect that should the council adopt any changes to the affordable housing ordinance, the applicant shall comply with the requirements and updates and revisions concerning any requirements that may include affordable housing units on site or pay fees or anything to that effect. And then the other one is the resubmittal of a relocation plan to the planning division.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, there's a second, and with this,
We need a roll call, please.
Ms. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Gingona?
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester?
Aye.
Ms. Manalo?
Aye. Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 12. Thank you, everyone. At this point, do my colleagues need a break before we go to item 12? No? Okay.
We're not going to jibber jabber forever here, right? We're going to get right to it.
You can jibber jabber forever, just kidding.
I think my bladder can handle another 15 minutes.
Got 1 minute, 5-minute break.
Sure, yeah, let's just do
By
it.
the way, that green is really gorgeous.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break. I mean, I think everyone, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, you're doing 5 minutes?
Thank you very much. We are out now on item number 12, the resolution of the City Council concerning the bankruptcy filed by Verity Health Systems at a potential sale of Seton Medical Center and Seton Coastside. For those of you in the audience and those of you watching, on August 31st, the operators of Verity Health called Integrity Healthcare, primarily owned by Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, filed for bankruptcy. And he started operating last year and wanted to enhance the system, but now says the system cannot be saved. There are conditions from the State Attorney General's office that Seton must operate as an acute care hospital and offer emergency services. Seton Hospital is extremely important because it sees over 28,000 patients, especially to those most in need. Also, for those of you, San Mateo County has also given about $25 million since 2013, about $15 million to have it seismically fit and retrofitted, with another $20 million from the health plan of San Mateo. In Daly City, Seton is the largest employer with about 1,500 jobs for many who've worked there for decades. The bottom line is we must find another operator to keep the hospital open and the community, for the community and its people. And so it was extremely important for us to pass a resolution on this issue, given the fact that Seton Medical Center and hospital and institution is extremely important for us to retain, most definitely central in our city, and that's why this resolution is here. I move to approve the resolution, and then if I have a second, we can go into discussion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Let's get it out there.
Just to make it clear, what this resolution actually says is that we want Verity Health System to affirm its commitment to provide continued patient care, and that we urge the Attorney General, who oversees any future sale, and to ensure that any potential buyers maintain the same level of service and commitment to patients and employees. And the Attorney General, who is not the current one, but the previous one, was very active in making sure that that happened. So I support your proposal.
And any other comments or questions? I do have a public comment on this prior to a vote. Ms. Gabrielle Maxman.
Council, it hasn't started. Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to recognize how important it is that there's a hospital on that hill. I also would like to just voice concern that that the deal that was negotiated has resulted in this, and that there needs to be more oversight in the future on these types of deals going forward, because it's really scary that what has transpired in a really short period of time. We in Daly City were promised one thing, and now we're getting the short end of the stick, and that's really unacceptable, because there were some very lofty promises, and there was a lot of money exchanged. And where is that money? If we've given Seton as much as you've said, where is it? And I think it's really scary that we can't answer that today. And I know that you all will do everything in your power to make sure that we can figure this out, to make sure that there is a hospital between San Francisco and Burlingame, because our community, Coastside, Daly City, Millbrae, South San Francisco, Brisbane, we all, Pacifica, we all need that hospital there, as well as the employees of that hospital. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment on this item? Okay.
Vote.
Vote?
Yeah.
And any other comments from our city manager? Okay. May we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Gingona?
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura?
Aye.
Mrs. Sylvester?
Aye.
Ms. Manalo?
Aye. Thank you very much. We're working extremely diligently with our San Mateo County Supervisor. As mentioned earlier, Assembly Member Phil Ting was here earlier talking about ensuring that as the new deal comes along and when they do find hopefully someone, and that's our goal, to take over and become the operator, that there are going to be guidelines that this new operator needs to uphold. We know how important this institution and health care system is for our community. I remember my grandma going there, during her elder years, and that's where she got her operation during cancer. And through that health care, she was able to survive that. And I know many other seniors that I talk to also go there, given the fact that majority, about 85% of their clientele are people with Medi-Cal and Medicare. So this is something really important for those in need. So thank you very much. I appreciate all the support from my colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to award of bids and contracts, appropriate funds from the Linda Vista Area of Benefit Sinking Fund and award of construction contract to replace the perimeter fence at the Bay Ridge Retention Basin.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thanks. Staff recommends that the City Council appropriate $30,000 from the Linda Vista Area of Benefit Sinking Fund and award a construction contract to North Fence and Deck Company of Daly City in the amount of $25,515 for the subject project, and authorize the city manager to execute the contract. The Public Works Maintenance Division maintains the storm drain system and retention basins within the Linda Vista, Bay Vista, and Bay Ridge subdivisions. During routine maintenance activities at the Bay Ridge Retention Basin, staff discovered that east and south perimeter fence is in disrepair. Public Works staff solicited quotes from four contractors. Only one contractor, North Fence and Deck Company, met the Department of Industrial Relations requirements. North Fence and Deck Company holds the required DIR certification, contractor's license, and Daly City business license, which are current and in good standing. The total estimated cost of the project is 30%, which includes a 20% in contingency. Sufficient funds for this project are available in the Linda Vista Area Benefit Sinking Fund. At the completion of the project, unused funds will be returned to the Linda Vista Sinking Fund. Staff is available to provide any additional information desired by the mayor, council members.
On behalf of Mayor Manella, do we have any questions? No? Seeing none, can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve and appropriate the funds from the Linda Vista Acre of the Benefit Sinking Fund to award the construction contract to replace the perimeter fence at the Bay Ridge Retention Plant.
Second?
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Christensen?
Yes.
Mr. Gingona?
Aye.
Mr. Buenaventura?
Aye.
Mr. Sylvester? And Ms. Manalo?
All right, moving on to public appearances, oral communications. No, public appearances. We have one speaker card, Ms. Gabriella Maxman. Public appearances.
Hi, everyone. I actually wanted to ask this during the check registers, but I'm just going to ask it now. So I noticed that from July to August that there was an increase of expenditures of $1 million. Just wanted to point out some large expenditures. It's hard to look because there's no GL account to know what these particular things are for, and since there's no comparison to prior month, it's hard to know whether or not these were out of the ordinary. But I am interested in knowing what they're for. It's not a judgment, it's just for my own education. So Golden State Fire, 1.3 million. I can't read my own writing. Government staffing, 30,000. Jacobs Associates, 563,000. Polydyne, 19,000. Sharp Electronics, 29,000. And someone named Francis Brenznigan, 35,000. I'm sorry if well, I guess it's all up there, so I hope I didn't affect anyone's confidentiality. But if someone can just get back to me and explain to me what these are for, it'd be really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, there are no other oh, Mr. Lex, did you have one?
I have one. Well, actually.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right.
I double duty on my card, and I've checked both item 11 as well as public comment.
All right, let me call,
Sure, that's fine.
did you have,
Yeah, I do.
okay, Mr. Lex, come on up, Mr. Lex.
Well, again, Mayor Manalo, Vice Mayor Buenaventura, members of the council, I've stayed this late to commend the Daly City Library staff in general and the staff who meet and engage the public in particular. I was speaking with staff at one of our branches last week and was reminded that we don't just check out books and DVDs, but that our libraries are a nexus of literacy, social, academic, economic, personal, job development, technology, and family and child development services. And I came to this realization because I was listening to the stories that the librarians were telling me about what they do. Almost not as part of their regular job, this is almost more than their regular job in delivering important services to members of our community. And that these services are rendered in a kind, respectful, friendly, helpful, knowledgeable, and supportive manner, despite the steady increase in workload and reduction in staff and library hours. I want to thank the City Council and Mr. Curran for not making any new cuts to the library's budget, but urge you to find better ways to financially support these essential centers of educational, public safety, economic, human, and community development that help and change, that help and change lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Pamela DiGiovanni?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. First, thank you for the resolution on Seton. We've been here before under the leadership at that time of then Mayor David Canepa, and when we went through all that, we fought together with the nurses, the healthcare workers, community members, and yes, this is not where we want to be today, but we fought before, and we could do it again. We can get strikes. We do whatever it takes to find a new buyer, and if that's the what needs to be done, and hold their feet to the fire. Secondly, I'd like to remind people that tomorrow is 9/11, and it is publicly being asked that no one post anything on Facebook from 8:46 a.m. in the morning to 10:28 a.m. tomorrow. These are the times that the planes hit the buildings during that tragic day. So if everybody could stay off of Facebook at this particular time or doing any social media at that time, it would be in respect of our 343 firefighters that lost their lives. So with that, thank you very much for everything you did tonight. And thank you for your public service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good comment. At this point, do we have any appointments for boards or commissions?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do. I'd like to nominate for the Daly City Recreation Commission the former Commissioner Andrea Wilcox left. She moved to Santa Barbara County, and because of that vacancy, I have an appointment to make, and I'm recommending or nominating Nadia Flamenco for appointment to the Recreation Commission to take her place.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations,
Thank
Nadia. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember.
I too had a departure from the Library Commission, and it's taken me a while when I've been asked when. So this evening, I would like to nominate a Mr. Marcel Balmeo, B-A-L-M-E-O, to the Library Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Any more? Okay.
I'd like to reappoint Jack Pastor to our Recreation Commission. Jack has been on that commission for a really long time. He's still very enthusiastic about recreation, and he's made a commitment to, he and I talked about it for quite some time, is that when new people come on, he wants to step up and mentor them. He's looking for young people to eventually replace him, but he's got the institutional knowledge of that place, so he's a really valuable member of that commission, and I'm thrilled to nominate him for reappointment.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Did he leave? I thought he was on that.
Oh, he was
He
expired.
is, I'm reappointing him.
Oh, yeah, of
his
course. Okay, I'm about to say it.
expired.
Oh, he hasn't gone anywhere.
All
But
right.
his position was expired.
Yes.
I see.
Okay, got it. Thank you. I also have a nomination for the Personnel Board. Mr. Gary Pacheco.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now on council committee reports. Council committee meetings from August 13th to September 10th. Any council meeting? Was our affordable housing? Yes. Yeah, so we had an Affordable Housing Committee meeting with Council Member Glenn Sylvester and I, looking at our policies with the Affordable Housing Ordinance, and then also looking at some of those policies in relation to on-site and in lieu fees. We had a very extensive meeting, that's why it's continued. We're really looking at this very thoroughly, understanding how important this is to revise and also move also quickly, as it's important for us to have this in place. AB 1505 was passed in January, and so we have done some work. We have more work to do, but you'll hear more from us from our next meeting. Are there now any other city council reports at this moment? Seeing none, I will do a quick one. I want to say thank you for everyone that attended the Love Not Hate Diversity Together event here at City Hall. I want to thank the staff. Thank you, Ms. Maltby, and also Stephen Stolt for really assisting on a Saturday morning that I thought was going to be foggy. The sun broke out, and there was definitely a wonderful diversity of folks celebrating our community. So once again, thank you for those who've joined us on that day. Also Saturday, there was an event by the firefighters for all of their charity drives. So if you are going to the Coma event, there were muscle cars last Saturday at Saramani. And also a beautiful Saturday. Vice Mayor Ray Ventura, Council Member Glenn Sylvester was there. Our Planning Commissioner Chair was also there with so many other community members. And I thought it was a hot summer day. We're having our summer back. And also Escabo Daan, in conjunction with the Filipino Bayanihan Resource Center, PBRC, had their grand opening of Filipino martial arts, which was really great to see young people learning martial arts in their culture, and that they had a grand opening last Saturday. And that is all that I have. So at this, oh yes.
I forgot, you kind of went kind of quickly. I got two items.
Okay.
First item is in light of the recent issues under what was called Rainbow Bright, yes, where certain home care providers have been exploiting their workers and human trafficking, and sometimes withholding their passports and making them work 24 hours. Daly City has passed a resolution against human trafficking, even though it is against the law. What I'm asking that Daly City does at this time is put something up on its social media channels to, if there's any other victims that may have been exploited, to report it to the local authorities and/or contact the Philippine National Police down at the Philippine Consulate. That's number one. The past couple of council meetings ago, I did say I had a surprise coming, so I do have that surprise in keeping my promise. And that's why the Millers stayed a little extra late, because they're wondering what it was. So what I'm going to do is pull this little board out here. And this is the Pink Patch Project, which is to honor breast cancer awareness. Most law enforcement agencies, most throughout California and the nation, gets involved. What they do is they get these patches, and their officers wear them in the month of October. Now, I left a little space up here. I think over here. Who's missing?
Not us.
Huh? Yes. So, as of today, Daly City PD has posted, and they now have the patches available. The public can purchase them. Our officers will be wearing them in the month of August. However, this is also available for the citizens to purchase, and all proceeds from the patches will be donated to the Susan G. Komen Fund. Captain, you want to say a couple words?
Correct, thank you. I brought an entire stack for you this evening, just in case, to make sure you fill up your poster board.
Did you get my check for 4?
I did not, but I brought more than 4. So.
Okay, because it's upstairs. I was upset. I told them I wanted 4 because I was going to pin that Daly City in front of everybody tonight.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead,
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Good evening. Yes, this is the first year that Daly City is participating in the Pink Patch program, along with other law enforcement agencies throughout the nation. We'll be supporting breast cancer awareness in October by selling these patches. All the proceeds will be donated to the Susan G. Komen Foundation or organization in support of that great cause. So they are available for purchase at the front desk of the police department, $10 each during business hours. And it's either cash or check to the Daly City Police Officers Association, who is instrumental in purchasing and supporting the program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good job. All right.
Councilmember Sylvester. Very nice.
Can we get them now from you?
Absolutely.
I have to go upstairs to get my check because I left it.
All right. Any other city council reports? Seeing none, we are. Yes?
I just have one quick.
Sorry.
I know it's late. I just wanted to do a plug for these 3 upcoming ballot measures that were accepted by the county. So we have Measure BB, which is related to business license tax. Measure VV, which is the hotel guest tax or TOT, and then the Measure UU. I love the way they picked these letters, but UU is cannabis business tax. And so if residents want to find out more about those ballot measures, they are on our website, and we are going to be sending out mailers in early October, and then using all upcoming events to give out pamphlets to the residents to educate them about these ballot measures. So
Very nice.
just important, yeah.
Thank you so much. And just a quick question around the mailers. Are we doing that on our own, or do we have someone that's working on these mailers?
So both. We're doing our initial handouts in-house. It's cheaper, and then we're using an outside company for the mailers that are going out later in October.
Okay, great.
Right. And I'm going to be going to the Daly City Neighborhood Association on Thursday and try to get that group educated, so.
And then we also have
Latina, yeah, to hand out.
To hand out their public education pamphlets.
Okay.
Various events that will be happening.
Right, like Latina heritage and
Very
make a
nice.
difference, and, yeah.
Thank you very much for your work on this.
Okay, that's it.
At this point, we will adjourn tonight's council meeting in the memory of the following, and a request from
Start off.
Councilmember Michael Ganguna.
I'd like to adjourn in memory of Josephine Alunan, who was the mother of a very good friend of mine, Lily Alunan, who went to high school with her at Westmore High School. She will be sorely missed.
Thank you for that. Susan Alunan, the other daughter, was actually my counselor at San Francisco State, so sending condolences to their family. Also, Council Member Judith Christensen, Ursula Deutsch.
Yes. Mrs. Ursula Deutsch was often referred to as the warrior of Westlake. She and her husband were two of the first residents in the Westlake. She passed away in August at the age of 93. Her single-minded campaign will go down in post-war suburban history as one of the very first uprising against restrictive housing development and housing associations in the entire country. She and others fought against the mandatory membership in the Westlake Improvement Association, the liens and fees that were charged people, and the restrictions that were imposed, including barring non-whites and non-Christians. She led a vocal and legal campaign to defend individual property rights and democratic values that ended the Housing Association's control in 1999. Many people in the Westlake subdivisions will remember her. Mrs. Ursula Deutsch was a very smart woman with an amazingly strong will. Anyone who knew her knows that. We send our deepest sympathy to the Deutsch family and all of her friends in Westlake and across Daly City. She'll be long remembered.
Also, Nicholas Garcia, brother of Jose Garcia, Public Works Maintenance Supervisor. Also, Ronald Harrison, the father of Daly City Police Department Sergeant Ron Harrison. May we all have a moment of silence. Thank you.